It is 6:30, so at this time, everybody please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1B, approval of agenda.
I move that the agenda for the April 10th, 2023 regular meeting be approved, and that policy be set aside, allowing items 2D and 2E to be treated as action items. Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mrs. Coleman. So any discussion?
Can you repeat that? Like, what was the? Is it written off here, read off here, or did we change something on the agenda?
No, I think you just want to give a quick overview of you and why you need your
The
action versus discussion.
I can't hear for some reason.
All right.
So D, the reason for set aside of policy for D and E, those items have not been discussed in the past, but traditionally, when we have to get work done, we bring things forward. We have copiers, printer replacements that we have to get that order in. That's a countywide bid process that's gone through that process, and we'll take care of that today. And then exterior door replacements. For the summer, we have to get those ordered so that we can get them in and get them installed before school starts. So those are set aside policies from discussion to action today.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, Chris, I'd like to see if we can move discussion item 3B into action item B2F. So that's the a discussion on the safety committee. We did speak about this in the last meeting, so I guess I'd like to move for that to be a formal vote today.
I second. Okay, so Mr. Keller is making a motion to make item 3B an action item, Superintendent Administrative Safety Committee. So Mr. Keller made the motion. Mr. Gogolewski seconded that. Renee, you got me on this? Okay. Discussion on moving that to an action item. Mr. Keller? Or I'm sorry, anyone?
I just want to be, what are we voting on? Are we voting on the, because I talked to you, are we voting on the actual, to formulate the governance that we would then bring back? I just want to be sure.
Correct. I guess just trying to get it out of the sandbox and get it into the do action mode. So I'd like to, I guess the motion would technically be to create a health and safety committee.
So we're going to health and safety committee. Now, are we voting? Do we, once we get to that item, are we then, because we're having a discussion on now, are we then? At what time do we then decide what that looks like? Further down the road? Or is that something we discuss when we get to it?
Yeah, we can discuss it as part of the discussion in the action item, or we can continue to discuss it here if it is what is necessary to allow everyone to make a decision whether they want to add that to an action item or not.
Okay. Any other discussion on moving item 3B to an action item?
I have something to say. So I support that because I feel like we have been talking about this for a while. We've had a lot of people that have told us that, you know, this is an important issue for them. And because we represent the community, we want to make sure that we support what they want. So I want to move it to an action item as well. And knowing that Greg had put together a full list of things that, we could potentially do, I think it's now at a point where we need a group to pare it down, help understand it, and we need to get a committee started. So I'd like to vote on it as well.
Right.
Thank you.
More discussion?
Yeah, I guess I'm fine with moving it up to a vote as long as our discussion gets us to the point where we feel like we can vote. So yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, and I agree also, obviously, safety is a priority, it always will be, I hope for every single person up here. When we get to it though, I hope we can all come to some type of agreement on what it looks like, because I know Mr. Keller at the last meeting. I felt there was so many broad topics without it, I was just wondering how it would look and who would be involved, and, all that, so. I'm hoping when we get to it, since we are not making an action item, we can agree, because I think it's important, I absolutely think it's important, but I would hate for us to not vote on it. Or pass it simply because we all don't have a clear vision of what it would be. Any other discussion on moving item 3B to item 2F? Hearing none. Mr. Gogolewski?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Glayback?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Yes.
I myself am a yes. So item 3B will now be item 2F, Superintendent Administrative Safety Committee. Back to the original motion. Hearing no more discussion, Mr. Gogolewski?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
It's item 1B, approval of the agenda. With the
Yeah.
addition,
Yes,
Mr. Gogolewski is a yes. Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Glayback?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Yes.
I myself am a yes. Motion carries. Item 1C, approval of the minutes, March 13th, 2023.
I move that the minutes from the March 13th, 2013 regular meeting be approved.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, supported by Mrs. Shaw. Any discussion?
yes. Once again, I'm looking at the call to public section in the meeting minutes, and we had 26 people at the call to public. And once again, all we're saying is that members of the public address the board. And I talked about this at a previous meeting, so you know how I feel about that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Gogolewski,
No,
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Clayback,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel.
Yes.
I myself a yes, that motion carries. Item 1D, Superintendent's Report.
Good evening, everyone. Good to have everybody here. As the spring weather is breaking. We did work today. Joe Mansell is working on getting the high school air unit up and running in preparation for. So anybody at the high school, we're working on making sure everything's running properly. Hopefully we have no issues this year, knock on wood. We'll get that up and going. I wanted to touch base again on the non-homestead millage proposal. Once again, a reminder to the public that this is standard operating procedure in school districts with the passage of Proposition A. Every school district, public school district in the state, minus maybe a couple that have no non-homestead properties in their domains, have to do this, have to put this before the voters. It's really up to the board on how often they do it. In the past, we did it yearly to make sure that we got our public educated on what this is. Some school districts do 10 years with an extra couple millage points to cover the rollback. We try to do it every 5 years. Last time we did it was 2016. It's not anything other than what we have to do to get our full allotment of dollars per student, because the state backtracks 18 mills for the non-homestead property based on our per pupil funding. They just simply take it out and don't send it to us. And so If this doesn't pass, once again, instead of receiving our $9,150 per student, we would get around $8,150 a student. When every other school district in the state of Michigan public school system would be getting the $9,150. And it would be sad to see that our students get less because our voters don't pass the non-homestead millage. Again, that's something our voters have to decide in the wisdom of the state, whether you call it wisdom or not. Back in '93, the consensus was that we work together, we collaborate together, and since this was a local contribution to the school funding mechanism, all voters in the school district should be able to vote on it, not just those paying the non-homestead. Because if only those people paying the non-homestead voted, it would never pass. And the legislators in '93 determined that this was the best way to make sure that you collected your local contribution of the non-homestead millage. I know that there's a flyer going around tonight. The first thing I see is something that says a 30-year renewal. I have no idea what that is. Lots of misinformation out there, unfortunately. I did a 2-minute Google search, just 2 minutes. I said to myself, Chuck, look at the clock, boom, 2 minutes and stop. In 2 minutes, this is what I found. Heartland, $5.5 million. So this is worth 8.5% of our budget. This is our standard general fund budget, period, for educating students. In Linden, it's worth about $2 million. In Howell, it's worth about $12 million. In Waterford, about $12 million a year. In Traverse City, it makes up 48% of their operating budget. Well, you think about Traverse City, a lot of non-homestead property. In Saline, $8.5 million. In Fraser, Michigan, $5.7 million. In Leadington, 64% of their budget is non-homestead. A lot of non-homestead property. It is simply part of doing business to collect our full allotment for each child that we educate in Heartland and any public school in the state of Michigan. So my hope, of course, is that voters get out and vote and do not slight our students simply because of misinformation that's out there that's just not true. It's something that we've always done. It's not a news tax. It is simply part of doing business in public schools. And the expectation is that we collect it locally, period. And it will not be made up if it doesn't get collected. So certainly if it doesn't pass, we go back to the voters. My recommendation to the board would be that we go back to the voters in August and spend the money that we have to do to get it passed. Unfortunately, what would happen in August is the board, in conjunction with working with us, I would imagine, would say, voters, now it's a full renewal of 18 mills, and here are the things that will go away if it doesn't pass. And that's never the best way to try to get something as simple as this, that's a standard operating millage taken care of. So it is what it is. And I hope on May 2nd, our voters come out and do what's right for our children, because the only people that will suffer are our children. So that's what I have to say about that. Just a reminder to the board, I did give you information on the LESA 2023-24 budget, the 2023-24 budget proposal. You are invited to the April 19th Livingston County Association of School Boards meeting where it will be presented. I've also asked Mike Hubert, the superintendent at LESA, to come to our May 8th meeting and also present the budget there. And then you will do a resolution supporting or not supporting the LESA budget, which again, we do benefit from as a school district. Also tonight, I asked JD Wheeler to come, and JD is going to present the athletic winter sports highlight. Normally you can see it up on the screen. Unfortunately, tonight when we turned on our overhead projection unit to get going, it would not function. So we can see, the board can see, we have a screen here. I will post this in my weekly update under the superintendent update button on our main webpage. So anybody that wants to see this can go to the superintendent's update page, and on what would it be, the 12th of April, it'll be listed as the 12th of April weekly update, and it'll be in there. So Renee has this, so she can save it and send it to me so I can include it in my weekly, right, JD?
Absolutely.
All right, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Good evening, everybody. Another very successful winter athletic season is under our belt. And with the sun finally coming out, it does feel like the spring season. First couple of weeks of the spring season didn't feel like that at all, as our teams are practicing in the gyms. And I will say this though, the chunk of turf that we have over at Oak Creek, that new facility, has been really beneficial to start our spring off. We've had baseball, softball, soccer, and then for the most part, boys and girls lacrosse all use that facility. In fact, it's been used right after school's gotten over, and I've even turned the lights on almost every weeknight for a team to practice into the evening. So it's been a really beneficial facility upgrade. So I just wanted to make sure I got that out there as well. So let's backtrack a little bit and talk about Heartland Winter Athletics for this past year. Varsity programs, we have 14 varsity programs that we support, 6 middle school programs in the winter. So that's 32 total teams when you go down to 7th grade teams, 8th grade teams, freshman JV, and varsity. So a lot is happening in terms of teams, coaches, student athletes, especially in the winter. 343 participants for our high school programs and 166 participants for our middle school programs. The most important thing that I drive home to our coaches and to our student athletes is that we are student athletes first, and that word student needs to come before athlete, and they need to make sure that they are doing a good job in the classroom before we ever ask them to step foot on the court or on the mat or anything like that. Our Heartland Scholar Athlete Award winners, that's a 3.0 GPA or higher. That's an award that we give out. 63% of our participants earn that award. And of our KLAA Scholar Athletes, that's our league that we are in, the Kensington Lakes Athletic Association. 3.25 GPA or higher, we had 53% of our student athletes hit that threshold. So very good job. In fact, those numbers are up from last year when I updated this program on both the Heartland and the KLA Scholar Athletes were up about 5 or 6% in that. So I was really happy with our winter athletes in the classroom. So far, we have 21 student athletes that have signed to go on to 4-year colleges or universities to play athletics next year. That's exactly the same number that we were at this time last year. I didn't have to update the slide with a different number. To be honest, it was 21 kids. I actually had someone sign today, so the number's at 22. But I think that's really impressive. Last year we finished with 36 student athletes that went on to 4-year school or colleges or universities, and we're hoping to hopefully be there or maybe a little bit higher this year. So here's some of our photos from our college signing days. Probably one of the most fun things that I do as athletic director is get to celebrate these kids and brag about them and have some of their college coaches, their high school coaches come down to the media center, and we do college signings with them. Super fun event. Their moms, their dads, usually college coach, high school coaches all attend that. What's been kind of new for this year is the teams have been coming. So when we have a football kid or a cheer kid or something like that signed at the college, we fill the media center with like the whole football program. And it's cool to see the kids that are in the senior class come and support their classmates. But I really like to see the youngsters, the 9th graders come, because in that what that does is almost kind of, you can see the goal being set in their brain of them wanting to be the one sitting at that table. So our college signing activities are really fun. One of the highlights of our seasons are our unified teams. In the winter, we have unified basketball. The coaches are Jason Reck and Lauren DePesto. Jason, who's right back there, does an amazing job. This year, we set a goal that we had way back when we first got into unified athletics, and that was to become a national unified champion school. And that happened for us this year. We were super happy, and Heartland is very deserving of that honor. At our unified assembly game, we were given this banner by a representative of the state of Michigan with Unified and Special Olympics. And that banner is going to be definitely displayed in a very prominent place in our gym for next year. So we're very excited about that.
JD, just a quick question.
Sure.
What are the requirements and parameters to meet to get that?
To be honest with you, Jason, sorry to put you on the spot, Mr. Rec. Sorry to put you on the spot, but Jason and Lauren did a lot of the application process, but I know that we had to have so many participants. We have to be active in so many sports. We have to, what else would it be, Jason?
It's participation, it's participation, it's the commitment to inclusivity in your program, all school events. One of our biggest selling point was 2 years ago, we held our first assembly game with Brighton, which exposed our whole student body to the program.
Yeah, really what they're looking for is they want it to truly be a unified experience. They don't want it just to be, hey, we've got unified games and they're over here on the side. They want it to be a truly inclusive and something that we bring our entire school in. So I know that our assembly game is a big part of that as well. This spring we'll have a unified bocce, which will be really fun. The kids are able to play bocce ball. We do that right out on the soccer field. And it's really nice. And bocce is one of those sports where it lends itself to some of our kids who have some physical limitations. They can play bocce and a lot of times beat some of the kids that they normally couldn't. So bocce is a great sport for unified. Chasing titles. Here are some of the accolades that we were able to receive this year. Just our team success was off the charts again this year. Our boys swim and dive, I've had 7 swimmers qualify and 2 divers qualify for the state finals. Our wrestling team, we're state runner-up, and what I think is one of the most impressive thing with our wrestling team is we had 10 individual state qualifiers. When you talk about some of the best wrestling teams in the state, you know, they may have 5, 6, 7 kids that get to go on to states. We had 10 individual state qualifiers, which was really cool. And we had 1 state champion, Bodie Abbey, he's one of our freshmen, won an individual state championship this year. Our competitive cheer team won the Cal-A, they won the conference, they won the regionals, and they qualified for team states. Just a great year from them too. Bowling, we had 1 girl and 1 boy qualify for the individual finals. Our female bowler was all state, first one that we've had in quite a while. Our archery team, again, state champions, they're amazing. Gymnastics, this year was the best gymnastics season that we've had since I've been athletic director, or since we brought the sport back. I believe our gymnastics team came back. I believe this was their 6th year. Yeah, it was my 3rd year of being AD, so I think this was their 6th year, and this was their most successful one. They were division champs, regional champs, and they got 4th in the state, which was amazing. Snowboarding, our girls team qualified for the state championship. Varsity ski, we had 2 individuals compete in the state championship. Our hockey team again this year, the bar is set so high for that team. It's amazing. I don't know of many other schools in the state where, you know, you make the Final Four and it almost feels like a disappointment. That's just crazy to me. You know, we lost in a triple overtime thriller to Brighton at USA Hockey Arena, and it was amazing. It was a super cool event if anybody was there. So again, they were state semifinalists. And then our pom-pom team, for the first time ever, qualified for the Division I state finals. Pom is a little bit different, where you have to qualify for Division I or Division II or Division III. And for the first time ever, we qualified in Division I. So it was a really great year by them as well. So here's just some pictures of some of our teams, some of them with their trophies and others just hanging out, having fun. But again, like I said, it was a really fun and worthwhile winter, and I think our student athletes had a great experience. So, any questions from the group?
I don't have a question, just a comment. I think it's so great to see all the different opportunities that our kids have, and obviously doing well is one thing, but it's that first number where you had so many participants at the high school, middle school. I think it's a great thing for the kids and for the community. So thank you. Kudos to all your coaches.
Thank you, Chris.
Great.
One other question too. How many students are involved in athletics, like overall, and what's the percentage of the student body?
Yeah, so right now at the high school, we're right around 1,700 kids, and of those, about 900 participate in athletics in at least one season.
I just have a comment. I think Heartland is a great sports program, and good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. All right, Renee, do you want me to do anything with it? Should I close it down or just leave it as is? Okay, have a great. I won't. Yeah, I know. Have a great night, everybody.
JD, I just want to say thank you as well. Successful programs means a lot of time on the road, a lot of time at night, covering activities. Because we're so successful, you are going a lot. So I just want to thank you for your commitment to our student body and making sure that our program is top notch. So thank you again. Lastly, I just wanted to mention, April is the time that I start gathering all of our evidence of effort for meeting the board goals that have been established for the year. By the end of April, I'll have all of our data. I'll get that out to the board. I'll do a presentation at the May 8th meeting. And we'll make sure that the board has all of that evidence of effort on what we've been doing this year here in Heartland. So ends the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Item 1E, call to the public. Again, I've been asked as speakers to express themselves in a civil manner with due respect and dignity and privacy for others who may be affected by their comments. Same situation as last time. We do have quite a few cards, so at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I'm gonna ask you to wrap things up. It doesn't mean stop talking immediately. I'm not trying to interrupt you. I'm just trying to adhere to the time so everybody in this list can be heard. So with that said, our first card is Allison Pace.
Chris, can I just make a comment? I know I spoke up there a lot. When you're in a group and you're trying to get something out, it is a little distracting when you do that. So is there some other method we can put a hand up or something instead of getting the speaker on track?
I know that like other districts have gone to like bell. Like I guess we could look at it like I think in one district there's like a chime.
I think just have a hand up like 5 minutes, like. I mean, I'm just saying that it is.
Definitely do not want to bell. Just. Yeah, I'll just, something I could wait, just, you know.
I promise not to go longer than 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Again, it's not deadlocked 3 minutes. I think that's not gonna,
It's okay.
you know.
Good evening and thank you for your time. I am a resident within Heartland Consolidated School boundaries and a parent to 3 current HCS students and a 2022 grad of Heartland High School. My family moved to the district 9 years ago and have had our kids attend every level of education from preschool through high school, including participation in dual enrollment in college courses via the DEEP program. I am by no means an education expert, but I am happy to share my pride as a parent of Heartland students. Here is a non-comprehensive list of the fantastic programs that my own kids have benefited from during the last 9 years. Girl Scouts, the instrumental music program at Farms or Creek and high school, peer-to-peer, Reaching Higher, National Junior Honor Society, DECA, middle school athletics, high school athletics, National Honor Society, D3U of M. Flint, Prelude Children's Theater, Link Crew, and Marching Band. This is just my own family and only represents a small portion of the programs going on at Heartland schools. Having academic and extracurricular programs that my students can identify with and grow from has positively impacted them in ways that I could not have imagined. And I know many more Heartland parents that also feel this way. I would also like to express my gratitude to Heartland teachers, admins, ancillary staff, and parent volunteers for their commitment and support of students. There's a lot of going above and beyond expectations happening in our schools every single day. Having engaged, caring, energetic staff and support sets our district apart. Through a difficult pandemic and the catch-up period that followed, our district has continued to put students and education first. We need these dedicated staff members. I'm speaking tonight for my kids, their fellow classmates, and Heartland parents that understand how vital funding is to maintain our district staff and programs that mean so very much to our young scholars. Please vote yes on May 2nd. Thank you.
Cinderella Von Cockroach.
Good evening, everyone.
Here we are again. Feel like I need to use this chance to clear up a couple more misconceptions. I've been watching what's going on online, and I know that some of these aren't coming from some of you, but I am addressing my comments to the board. First of all, I want to clear up that recordings weren't started because you were voted in. This was something that was actually being discussed for a long time beforehand. I know this because I discussed it with Megan in October. Don't think that it was a special favor to you that we're recording meetings now. You know, when people come up and threaten lawsuits, you usually need receipts. Second of all, there's this attitude going around that the petition for background checks was some sort of gotcha kind of ploy. But it's just because all other adults that are admitted to the school and around the children have to have one. I want to remind everybody here that this is an illustration of how democracy works. If you identify a problem, you start a petition, you get your community support, and then you present it. And that's how democracy works. So I just want to ask, you know, a certain member of the board last time asked to make sure that everybody is asking the questions on the things that they need to know. And so I want to know if everybody is, because I know I am. When the Livingston Lantern came out saying that we had certain books on our shelves, I did my due diligence. I called my children's principal and got clarification. And I was told that yes, at the high school level, there was Purposeful Wallflower and it had been yanked. But none of the other books reported in our library actually exist for us. They may be in the public library, I have no idea, but I was reported that they do not come from here. The same people are also saying that they're telling stories about this, how this non-homestead tax is unfair to business owners and property owners, that it's taxation without representation, but you have the choice to have your business or second home in this county. And it's literally the cost of doing business in Michigan, because almost every single district is 18 mills. And do you want to know how I know that? I called the county commissioner and I got explanation from the clerk. Okay, I spoke to 4 or 5 different township offices personally, because the county clerk didn't have the record of what the mill amount was on all of the other schools. So Fowlerville, Brighton, and Howell are all set at 18 mills, as well as the district that my other house is in, that I happily pay non-homesteaded taxes for. Because good school districts equals good property values, and I don't want my second house going down in value. I have the luxury of having a vacation home. I have no problem paying the taxes for it. Most of these other properties are income generating, and people here need to remember that.
Thank you.
So-
for your comments.
Was that my full time?
That was,
All
I'm
right.
sorry, I thought that, yeah, did I
You got
want to
it.
interrupt?
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. I should know by now, Ella, Nick, Nickton. Sorry about that.
Nikki Jim. You'll get it eventually, I'm sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Ella, the town cat. Someone here called me that on the podcast, and I kind of like the title, so I'm taking it. It's mine now. Anyways, I'm going to preface this by giving a thank you to Brooke Chapel for respecting my pronouns while talking about me on the podcast. It means a lot to me to hear that, even if you disagreed with what I had to say, you are still able to provide that basic level of respect. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the big elephant in the room, the millage. I'm sure y'all have had your ears talked off about property taxes and funding and what could be lost, but I know some of y'all don't care. So I just want to say, if you're not supporting the millage, you're putting your kid's life at risk. Losing this millage could jeopardize bus transportation for students, which means thousands of tired, busy parents suddenly having to drive their kids to school. And I don't mean to throw shade out there, but I've seen how some of y'all drive. When I was in school, if someone else's parents drove me home from somewhere, there was a 75% chance they'd be texting while driving. Are you really comfortable throwing your kids into that kind of an environment? Bus transportation existing is a safety issue. Because of that, I think that every person in this room should be supporting this millage. So why isn't every member of this school board on board? I'll tell you why. It's because we have a group of people with an agenda. You think this is about administrative pay, because it's not. Even if you cut all their pay in half, heck, even if you stop paying them entirely, you're not making up for a $5.5 million loss in the budget. This is not about the rent paid by renters either, or grocery store prices, or small business owners. The clean slate doesn't give a damn about any of these things, and pride flags really aren't that expensive. Every one of those arguments you've heard from these people is a lie or a twist to have truth. They're excuses. No, everyone in this room knows exactly what's up. We aren't being inundated with anti-millage propaganda because the clean slate actually gives a damn about the kids. This is a group of people salty about not winning all 4 seats, trying to burn everything down because things didn't go their way. This is their way of trying to gain leverage. Grow up. Y'all are twice my age, so act like it. And before you vote on May 2nd, please think about the teachers, the AP classes, the STEM courses, the extracurricular activities, and most importantly, the transportation and the threat to your kids' safety if that transportation is lost. Do you have the time and the will to drive your kids to school every single day, spending countless hours and hours of your life staring at a car's bumper in a mile-long line of cars? Do you care about the safety of your kids? Vote yes on May 2nd, and I await Glenn's pointless fit over the change in a policy from his or her to there in some
You're gonna have to wrap
discussion
this up.
items.
Sorry.
I'm sure it'll be pointless, but thank you.
Glenn Patillo.
Hi, guys. Chris, I looked at tonight's agenda, was a little disappointed we weren't having another session of Costa's Kangaroo Court like we had last month. Only this time Chuck is the defendant. Over a month ago, Chuck launched an investigation into Glenn, and then at last month's meeting, the board voted to censure both Glenn and Greg. This was all done based off misrepresentations from the superintendent and a letter that was sent to the district that didn't truthfully represent what had taken place. A week after Chuck went after these 2 board members for supposed misconduct, Chuck himself was implicated in doing the same thing. It seems that he has been leaking board information, possibly confidential, to his wife and then out to the public. I exchanged a number of emails with Chris Costa saying that everyone should be held to the same standard. And just like Glenn and Greg, Chuck's allegations needed to be investigated and there should be a censure vote. Chris had no explanation as to why Chuck is being treated differently. He has no idea what Chuck has been leaking, and yet he says there were no FERPA violations. He can't possibly make this claim without an investigation into what was said. One thing that is certain is that what Chuck has done is unprofessional, unethical, and has cast a negative light on this district, and that alone is enough to censure him. It's disappointing that some on this board can't muster the courage to do the right thing and hold everyone accountable to the same standard. And to you, Chuck, it's unbelievable that you go after other board members for the very thing that you are engaged in yourself. That's being a hypocrite. I don't agree with our president most of the time, but up until last month's meeting, I had respect for him. This changed when at the last meeting, he would not allow Glenn, a sitting board member, to use the projector in the room to defend against false accusations from Chuck. At another point in the meeting, he talked about the $30 fee that board members are supposed to receive and how Glenn wanted to collect on it. Chris went into this long dissertation on how it had never been paid in the past. Glenn finally had to stop him as he left out one little small detail. The real story was that Glenn wanted this to go into a scholarship fund for students. Chris intentionally distorted the truth to try and make Glenn look bad. They call this lying by omission, and we should expect better from the board president. I left the meeting disappointed in both Chuck and Chris. Our district is suffering from a lack of good, moral, honest leaders that have integrity and respect of the district.
Yeah, yes, great. Thanks.
Okay, just remember this, the 2 of you. You may think your antics are funny now, but you're not always going to have the majority.
Alex Yarber.
Good evening. I'd like to address the taxpayers of Heartland Township. And as relates to the property tax millage vote coming up, I have it's a very difficult thing to express to a community that you think they should vote no on a millage that affects the schools. I've got 3 kids that have all done extremely well in the schools. We're forever grateful and indebted to their educators. We appreciate all the great things they've done for them. But I think I might have a couple of different perspectives that other people might find to be beneficial as they consider whether or not this is a good millage at this time. Personally, I believe that this millage should be delayed until August. I think that, first of all, let me point out that the articles that were presented in the newsletter falsely indicate that there's not a new tax and that there's no impact on residential property. In fact, the current ballot language calls for a clawback of some mills which represent a new tax on appreciated value since the last renewal. I would call that a new tax. All non-homestead property is subject to the tax, including second homes and rentals. This millage is going to be disproportionately supported by voters who are not directly assessed the tax. That goes without saying. Regardless of the levy, the entire community pays the tax in the form of higher prices. Renters in particular are going to pay are already paying the tax in the form of higher rents. Exactly how are the funds being used? We don't 100% know. As part of the general fund, perhaps. I do know that about 27% of students enrolled in Heartland schools do not live in the district. And there's a lot of these students who are attracted to the special services of the district, which obviously consumes an unequal share of financial resources. This is going to cost $35,000. And I have a hard time understanding why the excuse of not holding it in August when there's a primary votes taking place, that voters don't flip their ballot over for local school issues. So does the administration and the Board of Education really represent our community values? Yes, they do, I'm sure. But you have to question some of the things that happened at the last board meeting when in a vote of 4-3, the clean slate members were overruled. They simply wanted some information about voting for multi-year raises and bonuses to the administrators. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve it, but it seemed like a reasonable request to me. It was a simple delay in wanting to understand better what information was used to make that decision. These members were overwhelmingly supported by the community. I feel that it's a referendum for their views and opinions to be heard. And there's plenty of issues that have been experienced by my family in spite of our good experiences that raise a lot of serious concerns about things that are happening in the schools today, including.
Mr. Adler, I'm sorry, I asked you to wrap things up.
Okay, thank you. Teachers in union logo wear attending rallies to protest conservative values. Curriculum that includes pornographic material. Yes, it is true. If you think it's a rumor, it's not. Excessive advocation and support for alternative and non-traditional sexual orientations.
Mr. Yarborough, I'm gonna have to stop. I've got to let you go.
Thank you.
Well beyond the 3 minutes.
And finally, students' use of bathrooms opposite their biological sex. Twice to my son in 2 weeks.
Deb and Bob Whitson.
Hello, board. I'd have a rebuttal for that because I did hear that you were given 6 weeks to make a decision on the raises. In my world, 6 weeks, you don't do your job, you're fired. So that's my rebuttal. Go ahead.
Thank you for having us here tonight. We appreciate all the work that you do on behalf of our children and on behalf of the employees here in the district. We have 2 children in the district currently. We also have a son who graduated in 2011 and thankfully to Heartland Schools, he's on a full ride to Wayne State for law school. So thank you very much for that. We appreciate that, especially with the cost of education rising. We're here to talk about the millage and how we fully support the upcoming millage and encourage others to do so. My husband and I grew up in a district that had a failed millage. And we have experienced the issues that happened after that millage failed. We had our high school and middle school schedules completely changed due to the pink slipping of several of our teachers within the district. We also had our bus transportation consolidated, so we were riding 3 kids to a bus. We also had any sports.
Three kids.
I'm sorry, 3 kids to a seat, due to that consolidation of losing bus drivers and things like that. We also had any sports that were not self-funding cut for that particular point in time. And after that was done, the parents of the community realized how important it was that we had this operating budget to support our schools. And in the next millage, it did pass, thankfully, but it was a very upsetting time for the students and the staff of our district. And given, you know, the COVID years that we've had and the trauma to our students and how hard it's been on our entire community, I would hate to see us lose this millage and have to put our kids through what we went through in school when our millage did not pass. So again, we strongly encourage people to get out and vote for this millage. And for our family, that will be a yes vote.
And to back up what JD showed up here and the rest of it, when that millage didn't pass, we went to baseball, football. That was the only sports. Everything else was cut. The pools were closed.
The pools was
For the
closed.
pools to open back up, I'm sure it cost the district more. It was probably what, 3 years before the schools opened up again with the
Wow.
pools. So I can tell you, they've never not had a millage pass after that in that district. So please get out and vote. All the parents with kids in the school, get out and vote. And like Chuck said, this is not different than any other district in the state of Michigan. So.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Monique Alberts.
Hi, my name is Monique Alberts and I'm the K-6 literacy coach in Heartland. I'm also a parent and former graduate of Heartland Schools. My family moved to the Heartland district in 1988. Since then, I've witnessed many changes to our small town. Many new businesses have moved in, parks have been developed, and dirt roads have changed over to pavement. However, even with all those big changes, one thing has stayed constant in our growing community, and that is our amazing schools. Our schools are why I chose to stay in this area, why I bring my daughters here, and why I will stay here as an educator. Tonight, I wanted an opportunity for my voice as an educator in this district to be heard. I didn't want my silence mistaken as compliance. The educators of Heartland Schools are a family, from the administrators like Chuck and Dave and Scott, to all of our amazing building principals, and to the educators and everyone in between. We show up and we support each other. We have never functioned as an us versus them district. We celebrate each other's successes, we support each other through the hard times, and we prioritize our students each and every day. Because of a strong vision, our dedicated administrators, and the countless amazing educators, Heartland Schools is a district we can all be proud of. Are Heartland Schools perfect? Of course not. Just like any individual, family, or business, we have goals that we are working together to achieve each and every day. The key word there is together. It's part of our mantra, give to all, gains for all. As administrators and educators, we rise to daily challenges, and we know our strength as a team. We stick together when times are hard, we reflect, and we grow. Someone wise once told me, the world is quick to criticize and find fault, and slow to praise and find the positive. Criticism is something you can avoid easily by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. However, that is not or never will be Heartland Schools. Together, we will succeed. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak and for my voice to be heard.
Thank you. Katie Milchalski.
Good evening. My name is Katie Machalski. I wanted to introduce myself tonight. I am the Livingston County field representative for Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin. And I just wanted to share that there is a congressional arts competition, the 2023 year. The congressional arts competition is open to all high school students, 9th through 12th grade, who either reside or attend school in Michigan's 7th district, which includes all of Livingston County. The artwork will be collected next week. We have outreach to all of our superintendents, art teachers, principals, and I will be collecting the artwork. The piece awarded first place will be displayed for 1 year in the US Capitol, and second place will receive his or her or their artwork in the Congresswoman Slotkin's Washington DC office. And third place piece will be displayed in her Lansing office. So we've had great participation in previous years. We're hoping for continued participation from our high school students. So I'm here tonight simply to put a face to a name. I know many of you or some of you may have worked with Mona Shand in the past as the Congresswoman's field representative. She has stayed on with the Congresswoman's office, just working in a different capacity. So thank you for this time tonight, and we look forward to seeing our work from Heartland students.
Thank you. Stacy Farrell.
Hi, my name is Stacy Farrell. I'm a resident of Howell and a mother of 4. I'm a volunteer, a mentor, an advocate, and serve on several boards at the county and state level. The work I do in the community is centered around strong families, healthy kids, and safe communities. I'm here to share an organization that I volunteer with called Braver Angels. It's an organization that seeks to reduce the political polarization in our community through skill building workshops and other programs. The mission of Braver Angels is they bring Americans together to bridge the partisan divide and strengthen our democratic republic. Another part of their pledge is in our communities, we engage those we disagree with, looking for common ground and ways to work together. They do this through a strict commitment to having equal representation among parties. There's also a strict commitment to the rules of engagement that we call the Braver Angels Way. We state our views fully and freely without fear. We welcome opportunities to engage those with whom we disagree. We treat people who disagree with us with honesty and respect. We seek to disagree accurately, avoiding exaggeration and stereotypes. We look for common ground where it exists, and if possible, find ways to work together. We believe that all of us have blind spots and that none of us are not worth talking to. We believe that in disagreements, both sides share and learn. In Braver Angels, neither side is teaching the other or giving feedback on how to think or say things differently. Our work ethic is citizen leadership. We're many volunteers assisted by a professional staff. Our workshops are based on the concepts around marriage counseling, as our founder is a certified marriage counselor. We work nationwide and we offer many different modes of learning, online and in-person skill building workshops, individual e-learning modules, debates, and more. And these resources are available to everyone. You don't have to be a member. I just happen to be a member, and it's the best $12 that I spend a year. The skills that I've gained have greatly impacted my relationships, and I have a deep respect and better understanding of those that I don't agree with. If you'd like more information, you can visit our website at braverangels.org. And I will leave materials here in my card for those that are interested, and we'll be sending a follow-up email to the board and administration. You can reach out to me directly to discuss any of these programs. And I believe that we can move forward together. Even during the most polarized time in America, Abraham Lincoln said, "We are not enemies, but friends." We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. Thank you.
Samantha Boyd.
Samantha Boyd. Okay. I'm speaking tonight regarding the violation of the board policy 7,000, social media use by Chuck Hughes. It clearly states while the board respects its employees' First Amendment rights, those do not include permission to post inflammatory comments that could compromise the district's mission, undermine staff relationships, or cause substantial disruption to the school environment. Chuck continues to do this, and most recent in his March weekly update posted many inflammatory comments about a podcast regarding Mr. Keller and Mr. Gogolewski. If Chuck's comments were not a direct violation of compromising the district's mission to work together, then I guess you don't understand the bylaws. Chuck specifically lied, stating Mr. Gogolewski would answer students acting out differently than school staff and quote, grab them by the scruff of the neck. This is a total lie and an inflammatory comment. If anyone actually watched or supported the podcast, it was actually the opposite of that. Chuck also went on to state that he was disappointed that Mr. Keller and Mr. Gogolewski did not stop the host of the podcast and correct his language. Disappointed, again, inflammatory words, and not working together with the board. So I'm going to say this much. I have 4 kids in the district in all 4 schools at all 4 levels. I have a deaf child who has an IEP, and we moved to this district because my other daughter was struggling with reading. Coming from there to here, and just the environment of the board alone, you being front and center, when in the other district we were in, it was the board was addressed, you were a side member, you were there, you're an employee, these are board member elected officials. And so it just seems like the dynamic of the relationship, we enjoy Heartland, I love the teachers, everything going on over here, it's wonderful. But there's I don't want to say like a corruption, or it's just very sad. And it seems fueled by you, the disruption that's going on in the community. So Chuck, you're an employee, and so sitting here next to Mr. Costa, I just urge Mr. Costa to do his job and let the board speak for the community and not Chuck.
Brian Parsons.
Hello. Okay, I want to thank the board for allowing me to address the board, first of all. I have 3 grandchildren in the school district, and I also have a daughter who's a teacher in another. I used to think that arming teachers might stop the shootings that we keep seeing, seems like on a weekly basis. But while that might help, I don't believe it would stop them. I think we need to stop these individuals at the door. And I think the only way to do that is to have metal detectors and to have 2 armed guards. Some people will call that. I mean, I hate to be, well, if you don't have 2 armed guards, if a person who's really committed to killing everybody, which they all seem hell bent on killing as many people as they can, they may take out that 1 guard. Okay, so the other one then take out the shooter before he gets in and kills more teachers and more kids. If sporting events can have metal detectors and a lot of other places, planes, everything like that, shouldn't we have the metal detectors and the guards in our school? Thank you for your time.
Mary Beth Patrika.
I am Mary Beth Patrikas, not an easy last name to pronounce. Thank you for your time. It seems that our bylaws are for thee, but not for me, as the case with the violations of bylaw 7540.02, as Mrs. Cindy Shaw constantly continues to violate. In the last school board meeting, Mrs. Shaw stated that she will 100% support the millage, will vote for it, promote it, etc. This is a public record as the last meeting was recorded. It clearly states in item 1 that statements or other items that support or oppose the candidates for public office, the investigation, prosecution, or recall of a public official, or passage of a tax levy or bond issue. Shaw does not disappoint, as this was proven when she was appointed, not elected, back in September and October. In September, she automatically became an expert after attending a safety meeting that, by the way, was held even before school employees had such training. She posted all over social media, "Come to me with your questions and concerns." So was she at that time speaking for the entire board? She should be censored, correct? Rules for thee, not for me. Let us jump to October, when she is promoting to buy shirts for the candidates she wanted elected, even posting pictures, spewing lies about the recall, trying to inform the public again that she is an expert. Love the one that posted a picture of winner and that was never retracted. Cindy strikes again with her expertise as recently as 2 weeks ago, promoting an interview of Chuck promoting the millage. If that is not violating said rules, I am not certain what is. I guess that is par, as she has not contributed much at all since she has been appointed, again, not elected, and shows such distaste toward some of her fellow board members. What expertise can Shaw lend a hand in next? Oh yes, violating those bylaws rules for thee, not for me. Should Cindy be censored? Does she speak on behalf and for the entire board?
No, Scott?
Good evening. When I started to pay attention to what goes on at these board meetings and the direction of the district, I really fully expected to see a room full of people debating what's best for our children. Instead, last year, what I saw was a scared board that wanted to put a wall around everything they did and keep the parents out. And then you sit there and wonder why you have distrust, why people are not trusting on the millage after you have shut parents out for no less than 3 years. Now we have some new board members and the rest of the community has demanded some transparency, which has finally come back after quite some time. Does that mean that now we can start to talk about what's best for the children? No, because some of you now find it your duty to step on the First Amendment rights of parents, community members, and even your fellow board members. At the December meeting, multiple parents stood here and talked about how their First Amendment rights were violated by a trustee acting as a Facebook group administrator, removing comments, blocking individuals from participating in discussions. A clear violation of the First Amendment rights of the people right here in this room. I brought this to your attention, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Costa. After that meeting, I emailed you. I said, I think there needs to be an investigation, and I asked it to be added to the agenda for the meeting. Was there an investigation? Probably not. Was it added to the board agenda? It was outright denied by Mr. Costa. Because Mr. Costa does not believe in free speech. That was made clear at the last meeting when he used a censure to try and silence fellow board members. Did they violate any policies, state, federal laws? No, Mr. Costa openly admitted that in the meeting. His censure was a purely politically motivated attempt to silence those that he does not agree with, and a clear infringement of their First Amendment rights. Mr. Costa, I'm sure you're going to continue to try and silence parents in this room and people in this community, just like you tried to silence the little old lady in the back of the room last month, arguing she couldn't talk if she couldn't walk. We had to shame you into letting her up here. I'm sorry?
You're down to 30 seconds, so you just wrap this up.
Mr. Costa, I don't think you know what the First Amendment means. More appropriately, I don't think you care. Your ignorance is a black eye on this body and on this district, and you have proven it over and over. When you misappropriated the shouting fire in a crowded theater analogy last month to convince us that board members couldn't talk, Mr. Costa, brush up on your history before you spout off your ignorance. The Supreme Court has upheld Americans are free to shout fire, but I'm not going to shout that tonight. What I am going to shout is that this body needs new leadership.
Hello. Tonight, I would like to address Board Policy 7,000, Item B, number 3, communicate. It clearly states, under no circumstances is district created content, apps, and services to be used for political lobbying. Item 1, includes statements or other items that support or oppose a candidate for public office, the investigation, prosecution, or recall of a public official, or passage of a tax levy or bond issue. Chuck Hughes has violated this bylaw in his weekly update letter from back in October, highlighting and supporting bios of members of the BOA running for office in the November election. This is a district violation of misuse of this bylaw. Chuck Hughes continues to violate this as well. As item 2 in this policy that states links to a website or another organization of the other website includes such a message. This was violated when he and Rachel Boyce sat through an interview conducted on behalf of the Heartland Athletic Department, where Chuck directly talked and supported the millage. This is in direct violation of these board policies. When Mr. Costa, are you going to do your job and reprimand and follow the bylaws? Chuck is an employee of the board. He reports to the board. Chuck also violated this policy regarding Mr. Keller and Mr. Gogolewski in his March weekly update, providing very false information about what was stated on a podcast. I'm surprised Mr. Gogolewski has not sued the district for such lies that Chuck continues to spread. When, Mr. Costa, are you going to follow and implement board policy? After all, it is your job to do so.
Don Schmidt.
Good evening. My name is Don Schmidt. I live in Tyrone Township, and I have 3 grandchildren who attend Heartland schools. The purpose of my presentation is to strongly encourage the superintendent and the board to improve the security of our children and teachers. I've been employed and active in emergency preparedness and risk management for the last 45 years. Keeping our children and teaching staff safe is a complex problem addressed by many different solutions. My brief comments will focus on the case for a schools-based armed deterrence and response to active killers. Often referred to as active shooters, these individuals have every intent to kill. Their plan is to kill as many people as they can. They study previous mass murders and want to achieve full celebrity and legendary status. 3 points. Active killers are on a killing suicide mission when you really think about it. These people may be mentally ill, ideologically driven, or just plain evil. They plan to die at the hands of the SWAT team or by their own hands. Most do not plan to survive. 2, active killers plan their targets and assess weak and strong defenses. In case after case, these killers have passed up one hardened target for a second or third easy target. And we just saw that in the Covenant case. These individuals do not want to be stopped before they can complete their mission and settle their score. 3, these killers do not follow the law, so no new or existing laws will prevent them from achieving their mission. So-called gun-free zones and gun-free zone stickers or signs on entry doors really mean nothing to someone on a suicide killing mission. Gun-free zones to a psychopathic murder are basically killing zones. Even the best response times and most heroic actions by trained law enforcement take considerable time, much as we saw again in Covenant. It's really time that students and teachers don't have. And we've seen over time that teachers and administrators have died placing themselves in the path of bullets to protect their students and our children. Recently, the Nashville Police Department dispatch the Covenant murderer within 14 minutes of the 911 call. Remember that 14 minutes. So look at the time right now, it's about 7:40. Let's say an active killer is reported to the building. The alarm's activated, we're moving students and we're locking down. You now hear the dreaded sound of multiple gunshots. You've locked down, you're waiting and you're praying. Take a look at the time again in 14 minutes. That's probably the best response time and SWAT team advance on the killer they're probably going to get. So in this scenario, as an educator, you and your kids are on their own, for now.
Mr. Schmidt, I know this is no good time to interrupt what you're saying, because I know it's very powerful, if you could wrap things up.
Closing. We need to strongly support the district in funding full-time armed personnel in each and every school building. Like the president, Congress, courts, jewelry stores, banks and airports, they're protected by men and women with guns. Are our children any less valuable? Heartland schools bear the responsibility for maintaining the safety and security of our children while in their care. Will Heartland schools be considered a hard target or an easy target? Thank you.
Aaron McKenna.
I just want to say that was a super important thing that he was talking about. I don't think you should interrupt it. Any of them you can interrupt, but don't interrupt that. I have grandchildren that are going to be old enough to go to school.
Hello, my name is Erin McKenna, and I'm a parent of a second grader at Lakes and a soon-to-be kindergartner. I am a Girl Scout leader, and my husband is a board member of and coach of the Heartland United Football Club and volunteer for Heartland Robotics. We are very involved with Heartland schools and will be here for years to come with a 5-year-old soon entering the school district in the fall. Our district have amazing teachers and support staff, especially Lakes. During my oldest kindergarten year, her teacher identified and reached out to us about a concern she had with my daughter falling behind in reading. She started receiving reading recovery services, which has been a tremendous help for her. In first grade, she continued to receive this service outside of an IEP or 504 plan, as at the time she did not qualify for that. Unfortunately, did not qualify for that. However, the school staff at the time knew that she needed this service and this support in order to continue to grow and not fall behind as she went up into years. In second grade, in first grade, she only got the support for half the school year because it was limited. Second grade, she was right back into the support. We started looking at IEP. I point all of this out because reading recovery is such an important program in our elementary schools. Extremely important. Every child doesn't learn the same. Every child doesn't benefit from just the services they receive in general education. This Dr. Avenal at Lakes has been tremendous help for her, and she is so close to being back up to reading level at grade level. Still behind, but she's getting there and she's working hard every day. I mention all of this because if the millage does not pass, this is one program that's at risk of possibly being cut amongst many others. Why would we put our children's education at risk? Groups that support the new clean slate board members are advocating for the millage to not be passed. This only leads me to believe that these new board members do not have the school district's best interest in mind, but rather trying to play politics with our children's education. I have seen.
I'm sorry, you're gonna interrupt things.
Okay, I'll end it with that. So I will respect that. Or do I have 30 seconds?
You got about another 15.
Okay, I have seen numerous postings and lies about the millage, and by now I would expect each new board member to publicly show their support. I cannot find a single reason why a school board member would not want to pass this millage. If so, please tell us. Additionally, I'm concerned that one board member, all right, I'll end it.
You're right. I do think we should be investigating something, because yeah, you're right, interrupting is not the best thing, but I'm not sure what it'd be, a bell, I'm not sure, we do have other cards. So.
Maybe like a timer.
It could be a
And then you
timing
can
idea.
yeah.
Well, we can talk about that. We have other cards. Karen Fox. Actually, maybe a timer you just out there,
Yeah.
or right here. Sorry, Karen.
I did time mine, so I will not go over, I promise. Hello, I'm here tonight to speak to the board about a few concerns that I have. First issue is the censoring of the 2 elected board members for speaking their opinions on a local podcast. Greg and Glenn both said in the very beginning of that podcast that their comments and beliefs were of their own and not of this panel as a whole. Last month, this board voted to strip the 2 of them their First Amendment rights, their freedom of speech. I'm here to demand the same board to do the same censorship to Superintendent Hughes, who just days after that revealed that Chuck had divulged private information to his wife, Chris, who then turned over to some information to her friend and made a public comment on Facebook. You all need to vote yay, investigate that as a unified board. We must uphold all officials to the same scrutiny. I look forward to seeing the same energy being held for the investigation on superintendent as they did for the other 2 elected board members. All right, next I would like this board to consider armed resource officers at each one of our school buildings as a do better method to increase security. We are living in dark times. Dark times call for drastic changes. In order to protect our Second Amendment rights to bear arms and protect ourselves, we must place a trained, licensed professional at each one of our schools. It's a fact that armed buildings have a far less chance of being attacked by gun violence. We protect our government officials, our Hollywood stars, our banks, our precious metals by armed guards. It's time that we start to protect our precious children the same. I'm gonna skip down here. You know that parents don't come up here to listen to themselves talk. We're here to ask for changes. We keep asking for changes, but we don't really see too many changes. And I'm just here to ask that the board members do a better job with trying to. Anytime there's anything to be voted on, there's 4 of you that keep anything from getting changed. That's not what we, the people of this district, want for our community and for our children for this district. If you keep roadblocking everything brought to this table for community change, you will be the next unelected board members. Good day.
Mrs. Fox, Barbara Tonkovich.
I did try to time this again. I might be 10 seconds.
I'm gonna give you the 10 seconds up front.
Thank you for the grace. Now, a joint House and Senate committee gave the final wording in 1789. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The amendment was a limit on the federal government only. There is no cause of fear that any one religion shall be exclusively established. Supreme Court Justice Joseph Story, in his commentaries on the Constitution of the United States, 1833, the whole power over the subject of religion is left exclusively to the state governments and the state constitutions. Story also wrote in 1840, the real object of the First Amendment was to exclude all rivalry among Christian sects. and to prevent any national ecclesiastical establishment which should give to a hierarchy the exclusive patronage of the national government. Bouvier's Law Dictionary in 1889 gave the definition of religion. By establishment of religion is meant the setting up of state church, or at least conferring upon one church of special favors which are denied to others. The Christian religion is, of course, recognized by the government, yet the preservation of religious liberty is left to the states. Things began to change by Justice Hugo Black in his Everson versus Board of Education decision of 1947, which removed religion from under states' jurisdiction and redefined Jefferson's phrase, wall of separation between church and state. This Black was a Democrat senator and former KKK member, which most of your Democrats were. Let's see, the justice did not peruse the proceedings of the first Congress, which debated the provisions now known as the First Amendment until after Everson was decided. Reagan in 1984 said, "Sometimes I can't help but feel the First Amendment is being turned on its head." In 82, he said, "To those who cite the First Amendment as reason for excluding God from more and more of our institutions and everyday life, may I just say the First Amendment of the Constitution was not written to protect the people of this country from religious values. It was written to protect religious values from government tyranny." He also said, "Well-meaning Americans in the name of freedom have taken freedom away for the sake of religious tolerance. They've forbidden religious practice." And lastly, former Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart noted, "If religious exercises are held to be impermissible activity in schools, it is placed as an artificial and state-created disadvantage. Permission for such exercises for those who want them is necessary if the schools are truly to be neutral in the matter of religion, and a refusal to permit them is seen not as the realization of state neutrality, but rather as an establishment of religion of secularism." And lastly, William Barr, everybody knows who he is. He said in 2020, "I feel today religion is being driven out of the marketplace of ideas, and there's an organized militant secular effort to drive religion out of our lives. To me, the problem today is not the religious people are trying to impose their views on non-religious people. It's the opposite. It's that militant secularists are trying to impose their values on religious people, and they're not accommodating the freedom of religion of people of faith." Thank you very, very much for the grace.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to start off by saying that we've had some fantastic speeches here tonight, so I'm not going to touch on some of the things that they've already discussed. But what I do want to encourage all of you up here is to listen to what we're saying. When you hear something, not once, not twice, but 3 times, when we're calling out our superintendent, where we're calling out our president, when we're calling out Cindy Shaw for these violations, please take them seriously and at least have a conversation with everybody in this room. Maybe you should have that as a discussion, or maybe at some point in a newsletter that can be brought up, because we don't all come here to hear ourselves talk. So that's the first part. I want to talk about the fact that I got an interesting phone call recently, multiple actually, when community members were coming up here thinking that there was a board meeting. Well, it's really interesting because there wasn't a board meeting because we had just had one that prior Monday. But instead, it looked like there was a board meeting to anybody walking by, except for guess who was missing? Megan wasn't there, Chris wasn't there, Kristen wasn't there, Cindy wasn't there. Guess who was? Our clean slate members. I don't know what happened in that meeting, but I can tell you right now, community members are wondering. Now, if I had to guess, I believe that you think that you can silence the clean slate somehow. that you want to pit them versus you, but you've already done that. You want to know why they're not telling you how they're voting? Because they can't. If you listen to any of the speeches tonight, they flat out said, it is not okay to take a position on this. You're supposed to be nonpartisan. Pay attention. Now, let's also talk about the fact that we've asked for a safety committee now. I don't know how long. I've spoken to Megan, I've spoken to our board members, Chris, Glenn, not Chris, sorry, but our clean slate members. But this time I thought by involving Megan, we would get somewhere. It's almost been 2 months. And you know what we asked for? We said, we want a safety committee where all of us can be a part of it because they're our kids and we have every right. But instead, nothing's happened so far. Why? How does it take this long? And now let's talk about the millage. The millage is great. Let's just say right now, the biggest advertisement that we can use to say vote no on the millage is everybody up here tonight that got up here and said vote yes. Quite honestly, they're the people that don't want to keep our kids safe, yet they're claiming they want to. They're saying that they have the fact that armed guards aren't going to help and they can actually cause more harm. Like everybody said, nope, we need them. And by the way, if someone comes to campus with a gun, the only way to stop them is with a gun. What are we going to do? Gather around them and sing Kumbaya? Come on, we need to do better. And we don't want you all on the safety committee without us. Let's talk about that. Have you considered the fact that maybe you've lost our trust? We've come here for how long now and asked for your support and help, and we get nothing, just like I started my speech. So thank you for listening and have a good one.
Thank you, Brooke. So ends the call to the public. I don't want to board reports and requests. Want to come down here, Ms. Mondale? Want to start us off?
Oh,
We can run this way.
I usually have a minute to prepare.
I'll give you as much time as you want.
Huh.
I think we should look into a clock or something. I'd love a way to not have to interrupt people. That would be great.
Okay, so thank you to all of the speakers. I was a speaker for 2 years in a row and now I sit up here for a reason. Because I felt unheard as well. So hopefully we'll address a lot of the items that were brought up. So I guess first things first is I heard that somebody told us that we were a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. We always will be. I believe wholeheartedly in non-discrimination. Everybody is equal in my mind. So whatever I do, just know that in my mind, that means everyone's equal. And the reason why I know that's the right way to be in this seat is because I am here, which means that those of you that voted for me wanted this. So I feel good about how I'm voting right now, and I hope you do too. One question I have is if the bond does not pass, are there other options? So I'd like to look into that. I know Megan and I and Kristen were talking the other day, and we need to get creative because there's the reality that if it doesn't pass, then we're going to have to figure out how to fill those gaps. So I'd like to know if there's any other options. One of those being is I asked Mr. Minsker about a bond. And then it dawned on me that I remember being at a commissioners meeting and they actually have somebody who is a bond expert. I don't know if Mr. Minsker is, but there's a service that you can actually go to, and they can provide you with bonds that you likely, pardon? Grants, I'm sorry, grants. That you can likely get, right? So I don't know if we want to pursue that. So that's the second question I have is have we looked into anything like that to look for further grants? Let's see, what's the other thing? Oh, there was a couple more I wrote down here. There's a lot of speakers. I too am concerned about safety of the students. We had a meeting with Sheriff Murphy the other day and talked to him at length about options. And there are options out there. What we're working on right now is like how to make those work for our students, because we want to make sure that we get them protection. Like I'm shocked that a lot of the discussion that I've had with other people is that schools have always had security guards and our school doesn't have them. And we don't have a police station in Heartland, so that makes it even more challenging. So, you know, I am very interested in what we can do, and we're looking into that with, you know, in budgets and things like that, which I know that doesn't seem like the right thing to put a number on, you know, children, because it's not, but you have to come up with the option and ability to pay for those people. So that's what we're working on right now. The other thing is, 1 second. You know, there have been a lot of things about Ms. Shaw and some of the things that she's put online. So, you know, I'd like to support the constituents and discuss, you know, any kind of broken bylaws or anything. Because it is kind of a current meeting. So I do want to add that to an agenda item or something that we need to do, because we do consistently hear that. So we need to just verify it or deny it, whatever the case may be. So that's the other thing. And finally, I'm excited for like October because I know there is a child. Let's see. Sorry, everybody, again. Oh, the other thing. Mrs. Slotkin's field political action, or whatever, I don't know how she announced herself. We're non-political in our district, and I feel like that's a political move. And so I'm wondering who approved Ms. Slotkin providing us with some level of whatever art.
I don't know. Just someone.
No, I don't think so.
I probably, that's the thing, that you don't have to be a resident to come speak here. Like we have.
But somehow she says she's looking forward to the artwork. Like I'm shocked at this because I don't, it's political.
Yeah, I did.
I'll handle that. Every legislator has a art piece that's chosen from their congressional district. So everybody, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, independent, whatever you might be in Washington, you get to select a piece and it gets to hang in the halls as her representative said. So this just gives our kids an opportunity, if they would like, to do artwork and submit it to the competition. Much like the app challenge that comes from the legislators. Again, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat within your area, you get to choose an app winner and highlight them. And that goes to Congress and they get to talk about it and showcase it. So that's all it is. It's the US legislators saying, we have this going on. We love kids to partake and submit their pieces. So it's not intended to be.
Is this new or is this something that's been going on? And they've done it with Heartland for all these years?
Yeah, all districts, every school district in the state gets to participate based on their area rep, whoever that is.
Okay, well, thanks for the clarification. I wasn't sure that really. I think that's it for now.
Thank you, Mrs. Blondell. Mr. Kelly.
All right, again, thanks to all the speakers tonight for coming out. I know that it's nice out today and probably a lot of other things you'd rather be doing, so appreciate the time. Not a lot for me today. I think there's one thing though that I did want to make a comment about the 6 weeks to decide on the administration contracts. It's one thing to say that you're gonna vote on something in 6 weeks, and it's another to actually give you 6 weeks with the information to decide upon it. So I just want to make it clear that we weren't looking at a contract for 6 weeks. It was, we were told that we were going to vote on them with the expectation that we were actually going to get a contract and there would be some further discussion over those next 6 weeks, but it didn't occur. So again, it was not in an attempt to pick on administrators or anybody. So just want to clear up that misconception. And then I guess with respect to the millage, I'm not gonna make any comments one way or another on it. I think it's our job as a board to do with whatever money the township thinks that we deserve as a district. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. And then lastly, just want to, say I'm looking forward to some further discussion with everybody on the safety committee. Clearly, it's a broken record every monthly meeting. People want more conversation around safety, and I personally feel, again, it's my views, not that of the board, just in case there's any misconceptions on that one, because I don't need another censorship, but I just want you to know that we need to do something. We've not moved forward at a very quick pace. And so I think, you know, there's been some activity to credit of those of you that have done stuff with it. I appreciate it, but I think we need to, you know, move quickly. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Keller.
All right, so congrats to our athletics teams, our winter athletics, that's pretty phenomenal. And the unified team is just something so fantastic. I think if anyone has the opportunity to go to one of those games, it's one of the most exciting and liberating times for those students, and it's just fantastic. So kudos to the team that puts that on, and Mr. Rack and Mr. Pestle. Because I think that that's an awesome opportunity for those individuals, and it's so awesome to see that some of our neighboring committees or communities are starting to participate and really come together and create competition really for these individuals. That's pretty cool. I will wait until we address the safety, school safety staff and safety committee to follow up to discussion points. There actually has been some work and some items that I've actually provided the board for consideration around that. So we don't sit up here and twiddle our thumbs. But one item that I do feel very passionate about, and you guys have heard me talk probably ad nauseum about, is the fact that there has been legislation passed that really has impacts on our district that we probably have no idea has passed. And so Glenn and I had the opportunity to meet with, you know, one of our state representatives and discuss how we can advocate against some of this. Obviously, the one that was discussed at last board meeting was the sex offenders as it pertains to school grounds. Unfortunately, the 2 people, nor the 7 people sitting up here can make a huge impact. So I'm going to ask that you guys as parents, teachers, administrators, members of our community actually help us with this. I think the more voices, the better. We're going to try to understand how we get information to you guys that's legit, that's factual, and that you can, that could potentially have some action items and how you can help to help us to be loud about some of this, and perhaps in future sessions, we may want to obviously petition to reverse some of this. So we're trying to figure out how to best get you the information. Reading a 120-page bill is probably not something you want to do in your spare time. Totally understand. And so we're going to try and provide some summary language to that, just in some of those on how it impacts our district. And we will keep you updated on that. Another thing that I want to bring up that I don't know that we've done in the past, and I've had conversations with Rachel on this, but I think that bringing benchmarks forward is something that's really important. So when we talk about administrative and teacher contracts, and something that I'm used to in my line of work is ensuring not only that we're benchmarking ourselves from a result standpoint, but also benchmarking ourselves from a compensation standpoint. And so I had the opportunity to look at some of that data. Some of that data is going to be updated at the end of this year. And really looking at what they're paid compared to other districts of our size, and then other districts within actually our county, because we realize that that's a competitive nature for us as well. So as those are updated, I would like the opportunity to bring those forward in full transparency so that you can see where they're at. Because they're not, you know, I think that we've heard in the community that some think they're very high. And when you can compare apples to apples, they're really not. And so, but we haven't provided that information. So I think that that's important moving forward. All of my other items I will discuss in discussion items, and I will certainly provide the summary of the meeting with Sheriff Murphy and some other items.
Thanks, Ms. Clifford. Look forward to hearing that. Mrs. Coleman?
Not too much from me tonight either. I do want to say thanks to JD for coming out and presenting, and hearing all the good news about our athletic teams is always great, especially when you see the number of student athletes that meet that requirement for the GPA
to earn the recognition for scholar athletes. That's awesome. I also want to say thank you to Renee or to Chuck or whoever provided this list of year-end activities, because that was on my list of things to request. So thank you. I can't believe we're already gearing up for the year-end stuff, and I have a whole lot already blocked off on my calendar to participate in. So I'm looking forward to that. Renee, thank you, Renee.
Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you. Just one quick thing for me. I just want to wish all of our high school students good luck this week as they're taking ACTs, SATs, and all the stuff coming up, including my son who's a junior who gets to take the SAT for the first time. So good luck to everyone, and thank you to all of our administrators, teachers. I know testing is such a big disruption, but thank you for putting in all of that extra time to make sure students are well prepared to take those tests. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Shaw. Mr. Ogilvy.
Yes, thank you. I've heard a lot of people up here tonight talk about how they assume certain people are going to vote on the millage. I appreciate the passion for supporting that millage vote. But a lot of the comments aimed at the board is not going to make that millage pass or fail. That is going to be a function of the public. I have been very careful not to say anything pro or con against the millage. It is not my place to do it according to bylaws. And the other thing too, I've been asked by countless people via email, via text, and even had some conversations with people in terms of how I'm going to vote and what are the reasons why, you know, I should push this and what have you. All I can say is that if you want the millage to pass, and I want to gear this a little bit more toward what happened during the last meeting, there was a large contingent that was representing administration and looking for the vote on the administrative raise. And after the vote was passed, they got up and left when there were two safety issues left on the agenda. The optics of that are not real good, especially when you know that you have opposition to a millage. Honestly, if I were to take a position on it, I would expect it to pass 60-40 at least, just based upon how Heartland has voted over the last 30 years. My question is not whether or not I'm for it. What question comes to my mind is how is that money going to be spent? The problem with being asked if you're for a millage, no one asked me, how do you plan on spending that money? That's where we should really buckle down and take a good look at. So that being said, another thing too, in the recent Did You Know minutes or announcement, we were looking at some figures here for Heartland administration and where they're at in comparison to other districts. And impressively, they're pretty low down the list in terms of money spent towards that. But there was an interesting little statistic involving the Brighton school system. Brighton receives funding for about 2,500 out of district shared time students. So the number is skewed, and I'm wondering, how do they do that? And I'm thinking Mr. Hughes might be able to tell us a little bit more about that. And I'd like to know how they get to do it and how we haven't done it. I'm really curious because Brighton has a budget of over $100 million. We have about 63 million, and they're getting money for 2,500 students out of district. So why have we not pursued the same game plan? Can I ask Mr. Hughes?
If you'd like me to answer, I'll give you a straight answer.
Sure.
Market's cornered. They cornered the market. They cornered the market back when they were a deficit district, And the plan was brought to them by a conglomerate of schools that are non-public schools. And they cornered the market. I talked with Matt Outlaw, the superintendent. They not only go beyond Lansing, they're in Eaton Rapids, they're everywhere that there is a private school or a non-public school where they're providing staff teachers to provide pieces of PE and electives and things like that, and they're able to put all those FTEs together, that when you put it all together, it equates to about 2,500 students and therefore money. And so they've invested in that for the last, gosh, they went into deficit way back in 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. It was a long time ago. But they cornered the market. There is no market for us to even get into that business. So it wouldn't do us any good. So that's the straight answer to that question.
No market even going north? Or,
Not that word.
okay. Because that's a huge discrepancy in how much money they get compared to us, and it would definitely help take the fear out of a millage not passing. So with that, I thank you.
Keep in mind that they also have a non-homestead millage that they have to pass.
Michelle actually brought that up during the personnel committee when they met last week, in conversation with Rachel. And so, much of you guys are probably used to me going and researching and doing all the things behind the scenes. It looks like, I don't know that it's sustainable either. It looks like that there's been potential posed each year to actually not allow that moving forward. So although, there's ways to mitigate risk, obviously, in various business plans, but not sure that that's gonna be around forever. But to your point, many years ago, they made a very good business decision.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have heard the same thing about how sustainable that plan may work. Thank you, Mr. Gogolewski. I just have a couple things. I do thank all the people that called the public. If I could find a better way for the 3-minute time limit, and I'm well aware 3 minutes is not enough time. I just hit shot clock, stop that. Yeah, just put it on above me. I don't know, we've got to figure out a better system, because obviously people, when you come up, if you're taking the time to come up, I do not want to interrupt you, but obviously to be fair to all. So again, I just want to thank everyone for coming out. I do want to talk about the non-homestead millage. I think it's crucial that it passes. The state has allocated this money for us. It's a part of so I can tell you that I am voting for it, and to not vote for it, I think is fiscally irresponsible. This is $5.5 million earmarked for Heartland. And for us, I mean, and this is not the Heartland non-homestead millage. I mean, it is, but Brighton has one. Howell has one. Fowlerville has one. This isn't something that Heartland invented. I know Mr. Hughes has tried to make that clear that this was enacted in the 90s to offset people's home prices. I believe in the 90s, people's taxes went down when this came in. So I think it's fiscally irresponsible to even not consider that this is important for our community. I know people got up and talked about all the wonderful things we have here. We do. And this is part of it. And we're not talking about a couple $100,000. We're talking about $5.5 million. My final thing. So I recently have come into a large amount of Apple figurines. Don't ask me where I got it from. But so what I brought them here tonight, they're over by Rachel. So each administrator, I bagged up enough for each one of you to have one for your desk, for your assistant principals to have one for your desk. They're these bizarre looking apples, don't judge them. But I also put 2 extra in, and I'm asking that if you could please figure out which 2 staff members, whatever one has the most seniority in your building, and whatever one is the most brand new in your building, and give them one of those apples as well. I think they're all deserving of them. I think you're deserving of them. Hopefully you look down at that apple and recognize that you're important. Your teachers are important, whether you're that most tenured teacher who has all the experience, or that brand new one out there struggling every day. So the bags are marked with the right amounts. So just please take that as a little bit of a thank you for being here, and thank your staff too. So with that, I am all set. Item 2A. Item 2A, payment of invoices. Motion by Mrs. Blaylock, support by Mrs. Coleman. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolewski,
Yeah.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman.
Yes.
Mrs. Blaylock.
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Blondell,
Yes.
myself, a yes, that motion carried. Item 2B, new hire.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, offers a probationary teaching contract to Lexi Tobel for the 2022-23 school year, pending verification of credentials and Public Acts 99, 83, and 189 requirements if applicable.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Shaw. Any discussion?
Can I know that Ms. Bondil, you had asked in the past for me to say, why are we doing this? What is this? I think you said, what does this replace, or give us some more information? Lexi has been working with us, because we needed a special ed teacher early on. She didn't quite have her certification, but we told her, if you came and worked with us under emergency certification, you got your certification, we hire you. And so she is now certified, and she's coming to the board. So that's why we're doing it now.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Hear another discussion, Mr. Gogolewski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Blaylock,
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mrs. Blondell.
I'm excited. Yes.
I am as well. I'm a yes. That motion carries. Congratulations.
We're excited too. So Lexi, we had a teacher leave in October pursuing a different career. We posted the position and in October, we did not get any applicants. So we got creative. And when I was talking to Mr. Minsker and Mr. Hughes, we heard that Lexi was completing her student teaching, about to start her special education certification. And we begged and pleaded, and we got Lexi. So she came in October, you know, a couple months in the school, we trained her rigorously, poor girl. And then in January, it's like, I felt like a mama bird with a baby bird, like, fly, I hope you fly. And not to be cheesy, but she has, and she's been awesome. She's teaching 5th and 6th grade resource room. Lexi came to us from Rochester University, played college basketball there. She went to farm. She's been in Heartland Schools K-12, graduated. And another reason to hire Lexi, Mr. Wisner, who had the most catch stars when you had her as a student. So that sealed the deal for me. And Lexi said, hey, 5th grade camps come up. Do you mind if I volunteer and help some kids? And I went, oh. So yes, we love her. She's been awesome. She is a natural leader. She is a natural teacher, and we are very lucky to have her. So welcome, Lexi. Thank you.
Like Mickey said, I was here K-12. I just want to thank all my past principals and JD and Mr. Wisner and all the other teachers for inspiring me to become an educator. And now I'm here, and for inspiring me to come back. And thank you for the board for this opportunity as well.
Item 2C, technology purchase.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Chief Financial Officer and the Director of Technology, approves the computer replacement purchase as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Shaw. Mr. Hughes or Mr. Usher, did somebody want to speak to kind of the specifics on this?
I thought Scott was around if I need him, but I think I can handle it. This is a bond purchase. Remember that we part of our bond was to replace technology. We do try to do a 3 to 5 year replacement cycle. In some cases, I think we have some computers in here that are reaching 8 years old. And so this just needs to be done as part of the bond. You have already approved the bond, so therefore it didn't need to be a discussion item, simply action to get this done so we can get the computers, so we can get them done and ready for the school year to start.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Any discussion?
Real quick question, what happens with the old ones? What do we do with those? Is that?
I'll try to answer it, so Scott, if I don't, just tell me, we try to salvage as many of the pieces as we possibly can that are usable, and the rest we recycle with the recycle company. See, yeah, I got thumbs up back there. I knew what I was talking about.
And this quote process follows the normal quote process that we have identified for all of the other fund projects.
Correct.
Any other discussion? Mr. Gogolewski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Cole,
Yes.
Mrs. Claybaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Blondell.
Yes.
And myself, a yes, that motion carries. Item 2, the copier printer replacement purchase.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Chief Financial Officer and the Director of Technology, approves the copier printer replacement purchase as presented.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mrs. Coleman. Discussion, and we mentioned earlier that we talked about how these items were from before, so we're making these purchases now with that bond money.
I know there will be a lot of high school teachers and administrators cheering this evening that they will be replaced.
And this is not bond, by the way, this is general fund dollars. We have to have copiers and printers in our buildings, and you're right, our copiers are old, as this says, last time we did this was quite some time ago. It's time, we did a countywide bid, this is through the county, so the countywide bid brings this in to fruition. And it's just a good deal to us, and I think overall, Rachel, if I'm not mistaken, we had talked, this contract will save us somewhere around $300,000 in copy costs, from the old contract.
Drop to zero.
Oh, 30,000, okay, I think, okay, maybe I got confused, because I think unfortunately, I don't know if the staff knows this yet, Mr. Usher, but all the copiers will have a function where you can't just send your job to the copier down in the office. You have to go down there and then you have to put your code in and you have to punch, okay, print my job now. So instead of thousands of copies being made where they're just made and, oh, I want to change something or this or that, you actually have to go down and run your copies. So that we're not wasting so much paper, so maybe we'll save 300,000 in the long run over 7 years, I don't know.
That's a lot of copies.
All right,
And people can get their steps when they go down with the copy.
but the reason why we have to supersede discussion and get this done is in order to get these copiers in place in the fall, we gotta get them ordered, so that's why we're coming now. They gave us some deadlines and we gotta hit them.
Hearing no other discussion.
I'm sorry, real
Oh,
quick.
Mr.
I
Kelly,
didn't want to
sorry.
interrupt you. So just a quick clarification for the service. 4169 a month. What was that entailing? Is that,
I can kind of help you with that.
Okay.
Scott, jump in if you need me or if I need you to, but that includes a certain number of copies and prints with that, both black and white and color. And then there's an overage charge if you go over that amount. So that per month charge includes so many copies. I believe it's 11 million or 12 million copies in a year.
so approximately 50,000 a year is the service contract piece?
Yes,
Which is not included in the 360, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. The 316 is to purchase the equipment. The $50,000 is the ongoing cost every year for the usage of that equipment. And that's the piece where we're saving because by moving to this model and not having that separate printer service agreement, that's where the savings of $30,000 a year comes in.
Well, as long as we're not losing 30 grand from Chuck having to walk to the printer, then I guess it's a good deal.
Sounds good.
I have a quick question. So when we do go over, what is that charge? So here it is, the overage is 0.0035 cents per copy of black and white.
And it's gonna hurt.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Hearing no other discussion. Mr. Gogolewski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yeah.
Mrs. Claybaugh.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mrs. Blondell.
Yes.
I myself am a yes, that motion carries. Item 2E, exterior door replacements.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Chief Financial Officer and the Director of Operations, approves the exterior door replacements as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Shaw. Discussion. Oh, Mrs. Claybaugh, it was Mrs. Claybaugh. I looked to my right, I'm like, okay. Sorry about Mrs. Claybaugh. Hearing no discussion.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
we can
important
talk
to know
about-
about these doors because.
I think there's
in
significant
light
that
of
we're getting.
recent events that happened in.
So the bottom line is we have doors that have to be replaced. If you go up to some of our doors, the salt is eating them away and they just, exterior doors don't last as long as you'd like them to last. So as we're making our replacements, we're also requiring that they have the safety glass in them. So you can't easily break it out. You can't shoot a hole in it and push it out. It takes you forever to get through the window. It's all safety glass. So these doors will have that. And as we've been replacing exterior doors, we're ensuring that it has that safety function to it. And I think, Matt, that's correct.
That we've known for a few years now. And it seems like the list hits pretty much every one of our buildings, if I'm not misunderstanding here. It's like, right, all.
And it'll continue, and we'll do some as we can. So you'll see this again down the road because we have to replace them, so.
It's good.
I think there were some items in that SEC report that dealt with doors, so this doesn't touch any of those, or is there any overlap with what we saw in that report?
I believe there's some overlap, Matt, correct?
The SEC report was just replacing door numbering on some of the doors that we did replace with the bond. Those were just a forgotten item and we've since done those. But there was a little overlap, just making sure that doors are latching. That's the biggest one that kind of comes out from these. The building shifts a little bit and they move from winter thaw. And so making sure that we have a good seal on our exterior doors.
Any other discussion? Mr. Ogleski?
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman.
Yes.
Mrs. Claybaugh.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mrs. Blondell.
Yes.
Something yes, that motion carries. Item 2F, Superintendent Administrative Health and Safety Committee. Mr. Keller, did you want to?
Yeah, I just want a motion to,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
do you need me to read?
I think you have to do, you do have to make you can just read the prior motion, but just insert.
Yeah, so I move to create a health and safety committee.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Keller. Support by Mrs. Blondell. Discussion.
Real quick, and I can send this link to anyone or happy to share copies. I'm happy to run down my copier, but it's very interesting. The state of Texas. They actually require their school districts to have a school safety and security committee, and the structure of it is actually very intentional. And really designed to make impact and not just meet to meet. And they really indicate you know, who serves on this committee. And obviously this is within the state of Texas, so we would make it applicable to us. How it functions, what their objectives are, so on and so forth. And so while I know that we're voting on today just to kind of perhaps create a structure that will be brought up back to the board, I'd like to consider learning from some of this that is very structured. What I don't want to happen is to create a committee that just needs to meet and really create objectives and create outcomes, goals around this, consistently PDCAing ourselves, understanding what our teachers, administrators are, you know, thinking with boots on the ground, where our vulnerabilities are, and I could go on for days about my thoughts on this, but I provided you guys each a packet that I hope you would consider.
And I second that.
I agree too. I did look it over a little bit because I know you sent it to me yesterday. And it does, they has like specifics, they meet twice a year for sure, and other things like that. So I think it's a good starting point for But we have, I think a lot of it is not, like you said, intended for the Heartland way, just as far as some of the things they have simply because we're not Texas, but I think it does have something to it.
I'd like to make a comment. So yeah, Megan's been instrumental and she provided us with a lot of data and she's brought some comprehensive information to it that we can, talk about and framework for us to use. When I think of safety, I think of both psychological and physical safety. So that's where I stand on this. That I'd like for it to include not only physical safety, but also psychological safety, which I think is important. Thank you.
So because it sounds like obviously every one of us is not going to disagree with safety is not a priority. I'm just wondering, foreshadowing that we're going to vote yes on this. I'm just wondering, how are we going to agree upon the makeup of this after we create it? Like, are we as a whole going to, once it's created, come back and say, like collectively, we're going to do this, or are we gonna choose? Like, what is everybody envisioning as far as after we, again, I'm not telling anybody how to vote, and I'm not saying how I'm going to vote, but let's say we do. What are we thinking?
I mean, the way I'm envisioning it, again, don't have all the answers, but the idea would have kind of the same scope in terms of our makeup, I guess, as we do with our current committees. So we've got 3 board members, administration. So I think we would kind of follow that same format. Initial meeting works on things like charter and what are we going to cover, and I've got a lot of stuff I can share and send. I'm happy to volunteer to serve on the committee. I guess I would defer to you, Chris, to see who.
Okay.
I don't know if, how we form a new committee, if it means we have to, get appointed by you. I think, when we just started here in January, we were told what committees we were on, so I don't know if it's just an assignment or whether or not you're going to take volunteers, but anyway.
I would say a best practice. Usually
The priority for me is to make sure that we're off doing something. It's kind of like it's the Willy Wonka chocolate bar here. It's kind of up in the stratosphere, and someone needs to push the button here to have it form something that we can actually do something with. So.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, I just want to be clear, are we envisioning that, obviously Greg has brought this forward, so I would assume that you would create the charter, so on and so forth, or what have you, with input from whoever. And then we bring it back here to solidify the committee and to say.
Launch it.
Well,
Launch, yeah, launch. There you go.
Well, I think that where we're at was on the floor right now is a motion to create this committee. So I think at this point we are, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we're locked into voting. We're creating the committee right now, but we don't know what it looks like unless someone else is misinterpreting the motion. So I think if we vote to do
That's
this,
the intent,
the committee's created, but at that point, we don't even know what it looks like. So I think then we have to then choose 3 people to create the kind of the goals and guidelines which you brought for us. So did that clarify what you were thinking, or does anybody else have any?
I don't think that there's any problem in 1 month being able to develop that framework. I really don't. It shouldn't take any longer than that. And as mentioned by Megan, this should be a committee with actual goals and objectives and not just a cursory, well, we have a safety committee. No, this one will have to meet on a regular basis and have to be a real committee. So unlike our others, which I can't answer for, but along with that, not only just goals and objectives, but also with minutes to inform, substantial minutes that we don't have right now from our other committees. And I don't think that a month from now, we should be scratching our heads going, well, what should it look like? I think everyone here has a good idea. We can put all of those thoughts together. We can make it happen, and we need to do it. So That's my 2 cents.
Any other discussion?
I think the only thing, I hear what Glenn is saying, I would just caution, that the board has to make a decision on the capabilities of the committee. Is the committee drafting, if you agree to start a committee today, what the motion is, we're gonna form it. And then you decide who's gonna sit on that committee. That committee then is gonna have to come together and draft out thoughts on what the committee's gonna accomplish with their goals, objectives and whatnot. You still have to bring that to the whole board for a vote. So just a reminder that I don't think Glenn, what you're saying is you're giving carte blanche to these 3 board members. You're saying you're still gonna bring it back here and we're going to have the discussion and adopt whatever is created. It's just a recommendation. That's still
Like any
stays
other
within-
committee, any recommendations that came from this committee would then come to the board.
Under the board, correct.
Correct.
So that you know,
So
you
it's
gotta.
not a black hole of decision-making that's gonna occur outside of
Right.
open meetings and things like that,
Just
so.
want to make sure we don't violate Open Meetings Act.
Correct.
All right.
And we separate just to get it started, because,
Yes.
you know, we've been talking about it and like that'll put some meat behind it, so I think that'll get everybody motivated to finalize a, you know, plan.
Right. And since we're not going to be the only school system with a safety committee, there's going to be a lot of examples to draw from. Doing a Google search on that, there's just unlimited information as far as what a safety committee could look like, what it should look like. And I don't think that there should be any problem coming back a month from now, having a clear idea of what we want to do.
Well, believe it or not, Glenn, there really is not a lot locally. So I think, you know, when you look at school of choice and things like that, you know, I don't know how many people are actually look for us. A safety committee to be their #1 metric, but if, you know, we're looking as a district to set ourselves apart from others, I think something like that shows leadership in the community rather than just kind of following along with, you know, whatever another school district may do. So, but yes, there are other examples out there that we can pull from for sure.
I had a very good conversation with Chief Lieutenant Jackson of the Detroit Public Schools Police Unit, and he mentioned the various different tiers of safety officers and what they're allowed to do, what they can do, and he talked a little bit about in some areas, depending upon how many you have, like officers to, let's say, semi-officers, for lack of a better term, there could be grant monies and such. So there's information out there. Also, he gave you the name of a state police personnel that helps districts form literally police departments in some cases. So I think we've got to start on it.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Hearing no other discussion. Mr. Gobleski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Cole.
Yeah.
Mrs. Claylock.
Yeah.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Ms. Blondell,
Yes.
I myself only yes, that motion carried. Just real quick before we move on to the next item, so as far as board members interested in being on that, if you would just please email me your interest, and if we have more than 3, then I'll reach out to all of you to talk about, you know, where we're gonna go from there. But it sounds like since the majority of us are voting yes, and the majority of us would be interested, but obviously.
So I have a question, though, if more than 3 people want to attend or be on the committee, it wouldn't be breaking the Open Meetings Act if we had open meetings, right? I'm just asking. Right, so there's 4 or 5 of us on the committee and we would have open meetings, and it's not breaking any rules or laws.
No, but I think the problem then is, as far as, again, somebody else can speak if they beyond me, our superintendent administrative committees, as they stand, consist of 3 board members and whoever may be fitting to that particular committee, whether the curriculum or finance. So if we go beyond that. I mean, I think then it falls into the Public Meetings Act where I think you're gonna have to follow more of like a guideline we follow at each of our meetings with the pledge, approval of the items for agenda. Like, I think you're gonna have to go more along that route. I could be wrong, but I believe that's the case if we actually do that.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Item 3A, school safety staff. Discussion.
I can get us started and then I'll lean on Michelle and Kristen. Several of us met, Michelle, Kristen and I met with Sheriff Mike Murphy last week to discuss integrating a school resource officer program within Heartland that is actually in addition to our current school resource officer, Mr. Capra. And it was a very good discussion. It was good to hear what other districts are doing. It was also good to hear his input on what a successful program looks like. There is a little bit of hesitancy amongst the sheriff's department. Overall, I would say not just with Heartland, I guess several years ago, maybe 15 years ago-ish. There was a push to do to formulate school resource officer programs. They did it, funding went away and they had to lay off individuals, and that's obviously the last thing that they want to do. And so, he was very straightforward and kept that at the forefront that whatever we do has to be sustainable and has to be sustainable long term. He did indicate that his ability to staff, for instance, all 8 schools at once is pretty darn impossible. They are not getting a lot of necessarily interest in being, as you can imagine, in being school resource officers. It's increasing over time. I think that as programs have started, they've started to see a little bit of positivity in that realm. But had recommended that it might be a mixed model and a bridged model to where we fully want to get. And he wholeheartedly felt that he could support at least 2 in the upcoming school year with the staff that he has and the staff that he is coming in from training. And so what we did, we asked several questions about, their success, about our involvement in the interview process, understanding that the candidate is key. This is much more than school safety, although that's certainly a, #1 priority. It's the relationships that these individuals build with kids. It's much different for a kid to have to go down and talk to a sheriff than just having to go down, because they're down to the office because, they're having a rough day. And so I think that that was a huge focus for us as well. And wanting to ensure that we were able to be a part of that selection process to select candidates that would fit in our district, that would be successful for students, that would really embody what all of our teachers, administrators, and certainly our families want within our district. And so we are currently modeling what this financially would look like from an impact standpoint. Rachel and I have been going back and forth today. Rachel, Michelle, and I are meeting to review the budget on Friday to understand the impact. So from a success standpoint, there's, Rachel, you're gonna have to correct me because I know I use my cash days on hand example. But they like to see our funds at 15 to 20%. And right now we're there, but where it gets a little iffy, I guess, is about year 26, where we start dipping into our general fund. And it's dependent on a multitude of factors. So when we do model this and bring it forward and send it to the public, it will be with a subset of assumptions. Understanding that the assumption of our student count, understanding the assumption of funding, understanding the assumption of current inflation rates and so on and so forth. But our goal is really to create a program that's sustainable, understanding that we have very vulnerable points, obviously within our district, and wanting to certainly serve those first. Kristen, Michelle, keep me honest here on summarizing those thoughts.
No, I think it's a great summary. We did have a at-length conversation. I mean, we've got some challenges because we don't have a Heartland Police Department. We've got farms, way out and, away from the rest of the district. So with that said, it's not impossible and we're working on ways to fit this in, but It all takes a little legwork, and Sheriff Murphy was saying that anything over 2 sheriffs, that's a sheriff in a vehicle. Anything above 2, we have to have long-term contracts, and I guess with the future of the bond or the millage, we can't commit to anything. So he was saying that 2, he could reabsorb if we didn't have the funding, but more than that, we couldn't. So we might look at a hybrid situation, because there are other services. I think even Brighton uses them, right? Like they use a Premier, yeah, so it's another service. It's not the sheriff's department, but they're still veterans and people that want to help protect children. So, we're gonna look into that. And I mean, he was just open and candid about all of it, so it felt good that we were actually, having this conversation. And I think we're gonna get a little further this week, like you said, yeah.
And I think that in meeting Glenn, in your discussions of talking with the Detroit Public Schools and their police force, I think that I had brought that up in the meeting, but if we could get to a point within, I guess, our county, where we had some type of support for that, as a long-term plan and a potentially more sustainable plan through county initiatives and resources, that might be something to bring to, I don't know if that would be appropriate for the county meeting for the county emergency manager, or where that would fall, maybe the LASA meeting, I'm not quite sure. But just as food for thought, understanding it takes multiple years to get there.
Right, absolutely. But no, that was an idea that I had discussed, because the other school districts in Livingston County have the same problems, same issues. And eventually there might be a point where we could actually, or the county could actually put together a school safety / police department and share it among various districts. And that was something that I was talking about with the chief. And like you mentioned, it may take a few years to do it, but if Heartland has one that's kind of exemplary and kind of leads the way, it's going to be an easier buy-in. And this is something that I think would even have to be approached with the commissioners as well. So.
Looking more short term than that longer term county level kind of plan. One item or one topic that we talked about in that meeting with the sheriff was using the one-time dollars that we currently have. They're kind of giving us that higher fund balance right now, and finding ways to use that money without incurring legacy costs of hiring a resource officer or what have you. And I know that just recently we received a grant for security, and there's a whole list of items that we're going to be implementing and purchasing to help security across the district. Some of those initiatives obviously are specific to buildings, some of them are district-wide. But I was just wondering if we had considered, if there's anything that didn't make the list, that list with the grant money, that we would want to consider using some of that one-time money that we have in the fund balance to be able to get more, to quote Sheriff Murphy, more bang for our buck with the funds that we do have right now.
Maybe you guys can talk about that maybe Friday meeting.
There's also a is it called Raptor? Yes, the visitor management system. Yes. So there's also a visitor management system in which the Brighton utilizes. Yes, that we are looking at utilizing in the future. In which utilizes real-time view. Essentially, as a visitor, you scan your ID and it runs a very quick report, but basically calling out felonies and sex offenders and very high-level basic things that we would be able to very quickly, with anyone coming into the building, have a quick swipe and understand what those risks are, and then obviously mitigate those if appropriate. But that was something that was also discussed in that meeting. I don't want to forget about that. And I think that there's been a lot of discussion around our financials, and I'm happy to sit down with anyone. I know Rachel's happy to sit down with anyone and review our financials and how this could impact our district, how it could impact our district $5 million less. I'm happy to review it with anyone that wants to take a look. And kind of go through each fund balance and understand where our funds are coming from, because it's very important. And you know, in conversations with everyone at this table, I don't think that that's not at the top of mind. And as things continue to happen in our country, I think it just becomes more and more visible that the importance is there and right in front of us, and we need to take action. And so we are looking to bring to the board a plan that would potentially start at the beginning of next school year. Obviously in partnership with the sheriffs, and this would be in addition to our patrols that are already in the district. We do want to certainly we want to live out that contract. We want to honor that contract that we've already engaged in, and so that is part of the plan as well.
I was gonna say thank you, all three of you, for sitting down with Sheriff Bergen. It sounds like he had a really good conversation with all of you. I know you mentioned that he looked into he wanted a healthy fund balance of 15 to 20%. Did the conversation come up about the potential of the shortfall that we may face with this non-homestead millage renewal? Because I mean, I am not a numbers person. I appreciate you and Rachel to being those numbers people, but I know we've got a month until we're gonna vote on this at least. Like, what implications does that do to our fund balance?
It was definitely the elephant in the room, I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, because
It was, and we decided to model it status quo as we are today, and understand what it would look like today. Obviously, Rachel, myself and the team are gonna go back to the drawing table if it looks very different, but that was definitely an elephant in the room, and I think the future elephant in the room really, what he was trying to say is, okay, even if it doesn't pass, what happens in 5 years? How can you make this a sustainable program? Because you never want to look at your public and say, hey, guess what? We're removing these safety officers because we have no money to pay for them.
Right.
And so, but we also don't want class sizes of, 55 students. So it was definitely an elephant in the room. And I think for him, just thinking long term, he said the worst thing I've ever done in my career as a sheriff is, give someone a pay slip. It's not taking care of difficult situations. It's really, having to tell someone they don't have a job tomorrow.
I agree, and I coming from the building where I work, and we do have a sheriff. I think it's a nice peace of mind for the students. It's nice for that sheriff to be there. I think they enjoy their time there. Like you said, we have to have the right fit. So I'm hoping that when we come back on May 8th, that we can have a really positive conversation about this.
I have one more comment. So during the meeting, I had asked Sheriff Murphy, like, if nothing else, is it possible that, we ask sheriffs that are driving by to stop at the schools? And he made the statement, it's not really doable because like the county isn't obligated to fund police officer en route anywhere. So, we tried that route as well, just to see if they could pop in, get to know the kids a little bit, like, just have their presence known, and that's not an option at this time.
Just to clarify, you mean officers beyond the two? That
Correct, yeah, sorry, I wasn't clear about that, yeah, officers, if they're just driving around on their beat, whatever you want to call it, just like pop in and say hi, but he just said it's just not something that he could commit to.
Well, and I think the other thing that we talked briefly about, I thought, but maybe we didn't, is we also have to be talking to the township and the other townships that make up, maybe I said this at our last meeting, like, there's probably gotta be bigger conversation of, do you also support school safety? Right? Like, here in Heartland Township, let's face it, the township has gone to the voters and they've been clear, said, hey, would you like more police? And they say, yeah. Would you like to pay for it? They say, no. And so maybe it's also enough of an emphasis that we can get help from those entities down the road to support this as well, because that's why we had to work with partners to get the 2 road patrol people, just so they would stop in our buildings because they couldn't before, like Sheriff Murphy said. So I think that there's a lot of development once we commit to this, is how do we as a board and how do I as a superintendent get those entities to say, this is important, we're gonna set aside some money, like they do for our senior center, right? We get some funding from all of the entities for our senior center. Maybe they'll be willing to put some of that aside to support school officers, maybe.
Yeah, we might need to get creative. In fact, what we were talking about is that Brighton does have a really big budget and we exchange funds with them back and forth. So maybe we talk to them about that. Yeah, get a little coupon going, something, see if we can, get something from them.
We did also, but really quickly, I'm sorry, I've talked a lot, but we've also discussed with them what their involvement in our district would be in our current safety, in the development of a safety committee and their involvement in that. And basically Sheriff Murphy's as involved with you as you'd like them to be, make them a part of your family, and so we would envision these individuals to actually help us identify vulnerabilities and opportunities, and really work collectively within the district, not just at their buildings, obviously. But that's a huge part of it as well, and that is supported by the sheriff's department.
Yeah, and I think to make mention also is that he was saying when they start to feel comfortable in the schools, because they're there every day. They can check lockers, they can stop students, they can ask how you doing, right? Like, there's a lot of things that they feel more comfortable doing instead of just popping in and out. You know, they're part of the everyday team, so that to me is, is great, because kids need, positive direction.
And I think that's what's nice about having a school resource officer. An officer coming into our buildings cannot check a locker or a car because they have to have this probable cause threshold. For us, it's just, we have a suspicion, that's enough for us. And we can say to the officer who's employed by us, would you search the car? Would you search the locker? And they're better prepared to know what to look for than we are. And when I had a safety officer, a school resource officer, Mike Capel was mine for many years. I could say, hey, do this, and he'd say, okay, right? Where the police officer coming off the street cannot. So we have a better opportunity to be able to say, hey, we have this opportunity to have a professional search.
Right. Item 3C, I still believe it remains 3C, we're gonna move the other one up, so I'm just gonna go for it, leave it as 3C, kitchen equipment purchase.
I'll take this one. So right now we are currently accepting bids for food service equipment. We do have an RFP on our website, the list of equipment I included in your packet. We do keep an inventory of all of our equipment in the district, kitchen equipment in order of priority that needs to be replaced. We try to chip away at this list as much as we can. Every year we include that as part of our food service budget. Based on what we need and what we can afford. This year our list is a little bit longer than normal, and that's really the same story that we're seeing everywhere as a result of one-time grant funds that we've received over the last 2 years, almost $300,000 worth. And so therefore our food service fund is in a position to be able to take care of more of these items on this list. All the items on the list are over 20 years old and are at the end of their useful life. And so we have that RFP out there. We have it due back April 17th. And we will have a recommendation for you at the May meeting of which items, if not all, on that list to replace depending on the pricing that comes back.
Thank you, Rachel. Any other discussion? Item 3D, changes school board meeting schedule. So I know we've talked about this in the past as a board, which is in a discussion right now. Moving those dates in June in the morning to the evenings. There were 2 in June. The one in July, I just left as is, not sure if we wanted to move that or not. I think we could have that discussion today, but I thought the consensus was that we felt more comfortable having the 6:30 meetings in June would fit.
And July, I mean, I think all of them.
Is
Yeah.
there any reason in July that we need to be in the morning?
No, I think the only reason that we left, I personally just left that one. I know in July, our central office is here during the day, and I thought if we left it, it'd be something that we could just do just at that one time. If it fits more for all of us, I mean, we're the board, we can move it. It didn't matter to me one way. That's why I figured we could talk about it.
That's why we're picking board positions though, right? In July?
Organizational meeting, yes.
Okay. So then need.
Want to move that one to 6:30?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Let's do that. Yep, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, that's why I left it that there, and that's
Thank you.
kind of a, yeah. All right. Item 3E, board stipend scholarship. So I know this came up at the last meeting. I don't know. Like, I mean, we can have a conversation on it, but I don't know coming back at the next, and this is my opinion, and other people are welcome to speak on this as well. If we are gonna vote to do this, are we then committing any other future board members to have to commit to do this? So I welcome to have discussion on it. And if need be that we feel we all want to come back and collectively agree that this is the direction we're gonna go, or do we just want to individually say, this is what I want to do with it? I'm open for that as well. So again, I just put it back onto the discussion item. Doesn't necessarily mean that we have to come back and vote on it if we collectively right now agree that.
I think
We want to
Rachel
go direction.
Rachel, you need to address the question of.
What does
Can
it
you
look like?
give the money to a scholarship fund, or do you still have to do a 1099? And you did some research.
Yeah, so basically any board stipend needs to be processed through the payroll system. So if the board chooses to accept the payments, they have to be onboarded through our hiring process. They would be paid through payroll, they'd be subject to payroll tax withholding. You'd be issued a W-2 at the end of the year. But what we can do is take your net pay and deposit that into a scholarship fund. What we can't do is just take the value of that stipend and move it to a scholarship fund, because scholarships are not an allowable expense in the general fund. So if we wanted to do something like that, through payroll, we can. Obviously, the other option is to forego this thing and create a board scholarship if the board chooses, just, you know, out of pocket. So there's many different options. It's really however the way that you guys want to do it.
What is the net fee breakdown to then per meeting?
I'm sorry.
What is it, what would we net per meeting after?
It'd be different for everybody because it just all depends on what you fill out on your.
Oh, okay.
It'd be subject to everyone.
What would it be, $30?
Yeah.
20 years?
Yeah, 20.
$20 or something.
Talk about doing one payment like at the end of the year. So if you start in July, you just held that payment until June, so process one time. If you wanted to do a scholarship, your process net in June goes into the account. You build it up until you decide you want to start distributing.
We just, is someone able to create that account and like, we just write a check to them?
I know, like, I feel like it's just a lot of work, right? It was a great idea, Glenn, like, don't get me wrong, because none of us are $20, right? Like, we're like, hey, what can we do with it? So either A, we do away with the payment, because I don't even know. I mean, it's my 4th board meeting and I haven't seen a red pen. No, and it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, like, do we do away with it? You know, like. It just seems to be a lot for $20. But I'm not opposed to providing money to a scholarship. If that's what you all want to do, I'll go with it, and it's totally fine.
So is there anything limiting me from taking the stipend and then giving it as a scholarship to the student or students of my choice?
You just out instead, like just out of your pocket, taking that value.
Yeah, just me doing that. It just seems a heck of a lot easier than all of the discussion to talk about, you know, how do we do this? And then a great point was brought up. Yeah, what happens if there's a new board member? Do they have to participate? Do they not? It seems like an awful lot of trouble for.
We could create a
Why can't it
scholarship.
just be optional?
Participate, you have to write your own check to it, because then you either take the money or you don't. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing, we all don't have to take, like, I could just get a check. And then that's optional.
Sure, and then we'll take the one payment, like Chuck was saying, and then we can do with it whatever we want, and you know. And then you're out of the loop and you don't
And
have
then-
another thing to do.
Right?
And then we have the question of
Right.
how do we disperse the funds? Which I'm sure will be entertaining, so.
You work with Erica Ampey at the high school and you create a scholarship from the board. And you create with her, she helps people all the time, create scholarships, and you set your standards, what you want to do, who you want to give it to, and she can help you do that. It's a pretty good process. She does a good job with that.
Yeah, I guess, well. If somebody's gonna take the lead on it, I personally, I'm not gonna take the money. I will write it my own personal check for a board scholarship, just out of my own money, but I don't feel it necessary to take what nets to be $240 approximately, and I will wholeheartedly give my own money to a Heartland student if that's the direction the board wants to go, or like as Gillespie suggested, he wants to do his own scholarship. Like like, this wasn't meant to be a big voting item, but, you know, I think if one of us wants to take the lead on a board scholarship, you can, or do we could just leave it as is, and if people want to decide to do what they want to do, they can do. Because it sounds like if I'm not hearing anything, and it sounds like that's what we're gonna do, is just leave it as is. Okay. All right, so I'm not, just if anybody's clear, I'm not gonna bring this back for a vote, because like I said, I think Mr. Gogleski may agree with me. I think we don't want to lock in any future members. Item 3F, new and revised policies. Now, there are a lot, so Mr. Hughes, do you want to speak to just the number of them, and then I will just touch on the last one.
Yep, just so you know, again, you do have a cover sheet for each of those policies on why the changes are coming forward. Again, most of those issues are minor changes, making sure that we're within the capacity of the law, expectations of the law. They're really can be lengthy, but they're really not when you look at them. One of the policies, the biggest change was moving one piece of information from the front to the back, which I don't know, that's the recommendation from our policy handler. So all of those are there. Feel free to reach out to me and talk to me. If I can't answer them, I'll make sure that someone in my office can. I think that I'll stop with all the policies. The biggest one for you all to look at, which is your own bylaw policy, is I guess there's two I should mention. One is the opioid antagonist policy. We do not have an opioid antagonist policy, basically a Narcan type on campus injection or providing that to a student or an adult that might need that. We've stayed away from that because in our relationship with the emergency responders, they're right here on Heartland Road. They make it to our buildings very quickly, and 9 times out of 10, where you might have to administer Narcan is probably going to be one of those buildings very close to the fire department. So as soon as we call 911, they're there like lickety split. But we do have a school nurse, and we do have a practicing physician's a medical assistant that can house the drug here on campus and be able to train people to administer that drug. So this policy coming forward, almost all districts have adopted it. We just didn't because of the location of the fire department. They're not far away, but the fire department encourages us to adopt the policy too, just to have it just in case. So that's in there for you to look at, to consider. And then the other revision was presented, which I was asked to bring forward, is the orientation bylaw, which adds requiring the background check based on the conversation at the last board meeting. Also adding that new board members would take the CBA 101 from the Michigan Association of School Boards orientation course within a 60-day time frame of coming onto the board. And then also I asked Renee to add the link to board policy. It would be added to copy of current negotiated agreements, because that's all on our transparency page as a link. Current budget statement is on our transparency page as a link. We probably could even put the organizational chart as a link. Because I think that was some, when some of the new board members came on, they're like, where's our stuff? And I'm like, well, you just go to this link and this link and this link. So anybody can see that under the transparency page on our website. All that information is there. So just trying to bring that into the fold. So that's there. I don't know, Chris, if you wanted to talk anything about that or anybody else.
Yeah, I know, obviously we had a number of people brought that petition signed to the last one about the background check, and it came up again and called the public. So obviously that's on there. Most all of us spoke adamantly about that's not an issue. The only thing on there I put on there was the MASB 101, and I think that Ms. Bonville, you signed up for it as well, like early on. I thought
I took it.
yeah. So I mean, it's all online. Back when I took it, we actually had to go to LESA.
I have a comment on that. What about alternative courses that are non-MASB? There's various organizations out there like the Leadership Institute, the National School Boards Leadership Council,
Yes, yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot of, yeah, we're
right.
taking other
Great
training as
Schools
well.
Initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
So
got
basically just having an alternative vendor to that CB 101 or whatever, it's CBA.
I'm not familiar, well, I know I was familiar with one of the items you mentioned, I don't know, like I said.
Well, I can say that, you know, we've taken a lot of training from alternate sources as well. It's markedly different. When you take the Michigan Board of Education, we might as well sit here drooling. But you take from other people and they say this is how you can affect change. So it is a little different. So I do have the ability to compare the two. It was 2 days for the Michigan Board of Education, it was tough.
The one they took the CBA 101.
Correct.
Oh, I don't know, I found it was 2 days.
What? Oh, no, it wasn't. Like I said, you just sit there and let it happen and just be on a board.
Oh, in person, it didn't, yeah, it wasn't painful, like there was
It was way longer than it needed to be.
Oh, yeah, no, there was several people from other,
Mhm.
perhaps I could take it again.
Okay.
So we can bring it back as a discussion.
Yeah, we'd like to add-
The other. Entities that you mentioned.
yeah, because I believe the MASB aren't they just under the NASB, the National Association of School Boards? Aren't they part of that? Yeah. Yeah, which is why I'm not pro MASB, so.
I think it's just, the intent was to provide a board member with an opportunity to understand. If they've not dealt with a public school, what kind of the differences were, so that was the intended goal of that.
So when would the timing of this take place?
Oh, yeah, obviously this is all retroactive, I mean, I don't.
So would this be for anybody that?
Yeah, it can't be retro.
Oh, no, we need, I mean, we're all sitting here and I don't think any of us are anywhere, like,
Maybe some of you have taken the CBA 101.
if you can find time within the next 5 years, 5.5 years, I mean. I think, again, it was just to give a better understanding for new board members come in, how a public school may differ from what they're used to. So I mean.
I guess the reason I'm asking questions here, I thought we all agreed, we all wanted to submit a background check, so technically this would imply anybody going forward, starting tomorrow, if it passed today, of course, which it's not, but.
Yeah, and then I mean,
We want to make sure that it includes all board members. Yep. So maybe just elimination of the word new or something.
I'll change it to all. So instead of each new, all board members?
Yeah, then we get,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we can have further conversations in the next 4 weeks.
no, that's a good point, Mr. Keller. Any other discussion on the board policy?
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not pleased with some of these changes in these policies. While it seems innocent enough, it's not in my mind. So I'm gonna raise a red flag and say that we're not getting rid of his and her and replacing them with their. In all the policies, seems like it's watering down the ability to just say his and her, or she and he being turned into something else. So I'm not pleased with that. I kind of wonder why that's happening.
And I agree that there's no justification for it, so.
Slippery slope. We got his and hers and that's it. So the other changes, like, we need to talk about a little bit more, because the only one that I'm, not super clear on is the therapy dogs, because I know we have several therapy dogs that are sponsored that kids really enjoy. And I don't want this, I can't understand what this is changing, because there's a ton changing for the animals, in the district. So if it doesn't affect what we have going on now, I'd like to know that, because I don't think that anybody wants to change because those dogs are loved, right?
Yeah, and what prompted this change for these animals? I mean, where did that come from? Was there just from Neola as a recommendation?
No, the policy wasn't strong in regards to how therapy dogs are run through school districts. Now, what we did, what you would know is that 2 years ago, we worked with DPAC, the District Parent Advisory Committee, and redid our therapy dog policy. So I'll send that to you so you can see it. and it puts it more in line with what we had created using parents in the district. With our DPAC to make sure we had a process for having our dogs, because we didn't have a process. So we put it in place, this will match
So it's
that.
tightening it up, so it's not gonna do anything to the
No.
status of the dogs or like
No.
make it that it's
No.
closer to, okay.
No, it just solidifies what we've already got. as a
Okay.
Policy.
So then we go back to the she and he, I want that on record, I do not support that at all.
What I'll do is send you what we have, so you can compare it to this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
So you can
fine.
see that it works.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, I mean, I know, I just didn't want to interpret it incorrectly.
The only other one we might want to take a look at with what we're doing today, again, dependent on both structure and voting for in May meeting, the school safety information policy. We might want to round that out with what we're doing, the initiative that we're bringing forward that were discussed today. Just to include some of that in here.
Oh, good idea.
And some of it, again, we might not have,
Government.
ready necessarily to vote on next board meeting, but I think that the voting next board meeting will prompt perhaps additional information that has to go into this policy.
For policy 400, school safety information.
8400, yeah.
I agree.
Make a note of that.
Any other discussion?
So, yeah, so if it's brought back next week with these, change of titles and pronouns, I will say no,
Because you're.
and I think others should as well.
You're referencing.
Yes,
like, for
others
example, the.
Yeah, there's several spots where it says his and her, and it's crossed out to the
It's just
student,
a student.
or she and he, it's the handler, you know, they're changing it and watering it down, and I'm
Say-
not pleased with that.
To say the student.
I wanted to say, should we, the she or he, or
As opposed
or how it is written, I don't think it needs to change, I think it's written and it doesn't need any changes like they're making.
Okay.
For pronouns, we want to
I
be clear,
do understand that, again, while that is your opinion.
I don't think it's just my opinion,
Hang on, can I finish?
sure,
The fact is that they're putting it in the realm of how we do business and how we talk with kids. And that kids do use pronouns, whether we choose to have them use pronouns or not, it's their choice. And so what they're saying is, instead of saying his or her, there is a general term that fits the policy. So while you may not agree with that, it's more conducive to the policy and there meaning students, there as the whole.
It's also in there for the principals.
Thank you very much.
well, yeah, but you know, again, I'm part of the board and I'm saying I do not agree with it and I don't approve it, so when you say it's my opinion, Chuck. Yes, it is my opinion, but it's also the opinion of many parents in our community. My opinion is if it doesn't matter.
And you get the vote on it, thank you.
Excuse me, are you shutting me down?
No, Ms. Levy, I believe he said, and you. get
But
to
he's
vote on-
saying thank you to end the conversation, I'm just telling you.
No, again, wait, and we'll bring it back, and if those, we'll vote on each one individually. And if those don't pass, or we feel need to change them, because as I'm flipping through, I noticed the first one, it said the student. And then, you know, again, obviously, there's a second one where it says the student. So that's on the same policy, the student assessment. So yeah, no, we can have this discussion at a.
Thank you. Appreciate it, yeah.
Just consideration to wait and bring the school safety one back into discussion and not a voting item. I'm so sorry.
Yes, no, did you note that, Mr. Green? Policy 8400, bring it back to discussion.
And there's also a policy too that we should be looking at regarding the ability for someone coming to speak but doesn't have the physical ability to do it, that we ensure that we give the right for them to have someone read their comments.
Absolutely. Yep. I don't think, and again, I'm not opposed to making a policy to that, or even just a statement saying, you know, this person doesn't have a person's ability to speak. Like, I know one woman came up and said she was just gonna read someone else's card, and she decided just to give her name, so. Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. I don't know if we have to put a policy in place, or, you know, I'm speaking on behalf.
Practice to have that microphone ready, like everybody.
Yeah, have the microphone ready. Yeah.
One of us run.
Absolutely. Someone on the end, maybe?
If they have the ability to actually speak too, though, that's a consideration, so.
All right, item 4A, future meetings, May 8th, 2023, 6:30 right here. Item 4B, informational items, anyone? Okay, hearing none, we are adjourned. Principals, don't forget these apples, they're not coming home with me.
Nikki got him.